On digital radio and 1089 and 1053 AM.
The Two Mics on Talk Sport.
Good afternoon, I'm Mike Graham, he's Mike Parry, you're listening to the Two Mics on Talk Sport. We've been called up for international duty. It's a big one for Big Sam, his first outing as the New England manager, and Porky is sure it's going to be a great one. He says he's got to get a win, but is it going to be any different from the Euros? We'll be going straight to Slovakia to see what's changed in the England camp. We've also got a special guest on from Scotland ahead of their game against Malta, 176th in the world, but Borden Strachan says it's going to be a tough game. Les McKeown, lead singer of the Bay City Rollers, is going to be joining us. And of course, we'll keep you updated with all the action from the Italian Grand Prix at Monza, where Vicky is watching it for us. 08717 22 3344. You're listening to the Two Mics with me, Mike Graham, and Mike Parry on Talk Sport. This is Talk Sport. We are the Two Mics. It's going to be a very, very exciting afternoon of sport and much else besides. It's time to say a very, very good afternoon to Mr. Mike, a Porky, a Parry. Very good afternoon to you, Mr. Parry.
And a very good afternoon to you, Mike. I'll tell you what, I'm most excited about talking to Les McKeown. I think he's brilliant, honestly. Yes. I mean, that guy is he literally is a pop star legend. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I was watching a couple of their old videos, actually. Bye Bye Baby and all that. Yeah. Quite amazing.
Bye Bye Baby, Baby, goodbye.
We may have to have a little blast of that a little bit later on.
It was fantastic.
Yeah.
And, you know, although we're of a certain age, so to speak, you know, early middle age and all that kind of stuff, when I started my journalistic career, that's when the basic roles were at their height.
Yes.
And
they were massive, weren't they?
Oh, they're huge. You can't understand it. It was Beatlemania, you know, all over again for that sort of era. Yeah. And what happened was, I was working in Newcastle, and they came to one of the theatres in Newcastle. It might have been the one we played in Newcastle, you know, or
it might have been slightly bigger, perhaps.
Yeah, or the Civic Hall or something like that. But the lad who went and did the review was a lad called Paul Nunn.
Oh yeah,
and Paul was a lovely fella. He was so laid back and so dignified and all this kind of stuff, but didn't really understand pop music. You know, he was more into.
Was he like a theatre critic?
Well, he was from the era of the sort of the Kinks and all that kind of stuff. Couldn't quite understand this Bay City Roller. So he goes along to it that night, and he does a review in the Evening Chronicle next day. We literally started receiving death threats, you know, from disaffected young ladies on Tyneside. You know, we're going to get you, Paul. We're going to kill you. You don't talk about our Les like that. Right. No, I mean, basically, Paul said these are talentless people. You know,
this is what the Justin Bieber crowd do, isn't it? So they've been doing it like 40 years before.
Yeah, exactly, and all that kind of stuff. But of course, they were hugely successful, the old Rollers, and they did conquer the world. They got their name from the fact that they were on a tour in America when they weren't even famous, and you know, their manager, the famous Scots guy, what was his name?
Tom Payton.
That's him, yeah. Said, you know, you've got to change your name and all. They looked on a map, and in Florida there was a town there called Bay City, so it would be the Bay City Rollers. That was it. But it was brilliant, and you're going to.
And they're on the comeback trail, which is
they're on the comeback trail.
They're going to be doing another tour. I think they did a bit of a mini tour earlier this year.
I think they did, but I think they're going on in December or something like that. But anyway, look, all that aside, you talked to Les McKeown about Scotland.
Now, Les claims that as much as he's a football fan, he's not a massive football fan. You know his excuses. His excuse is that he comes from Edinburgh. Yeah. And Edinburgh is not exactly where you think of as
in the wall
as the centre of the Rangers Celtic thing. But they've got Hibs and they've got Heart of Midlothian. In fact, when we did the quiz last week, we mentioned their ground, didn't we? Tyne Castle.
Unfortunately, we did, yeah.
So,
and I had a mental block at the time. But no, that's great. Now, the old Grand Prix start, doesn't it, in Italy? Monza seems to be a bit of wheel and metal flying all over the place. I don't know if something's sort of crashed up there or something like that. But
well, it's underway, isn't it? So we'll be checking it with Beaky from time to time.
Yeah, Lewis Hamilton got pole again, which is brilliant. This man is in my mind
You're not going to predict that he's going to win it again, are you?
Well,
because every time we're on and there's a Grand Prix on, you always predict that Lewis Hamilton's going to win it.
Well, you're absolutely right. Now, his teammate, what's his name?
There is some garbage on the track there.
Yeah, his teammate, old, what's his name? You know, the Scandinavian boy. Very nice lad. No. Lewis Hamilton's teammate in the Mercedes team.
Well, you mean the guy he doesn't get on with?
Yeah,
Nico Rosberg.
Nico Rosberg.
Yeah. He doesn't often get referred to as his teammate, does he?
No, he doesn't
More gets referred to as his adversary.
Yeah, his adversary. Well, teammate, whatever you want to call it. He must now be at the point where if he can't beat him again this season, Why bother competing against him next season?
Well,
What's
I
the point?
think, would he not want to compete against him from another team,
That's
perhaps?
what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. So what does he have to do? Because it works in cycles, doesn't it, Formula One? You know, for about 5 or 6 years, one team is absolutely dominant. It might have been Marlboro. It might have been Red Bull.
Yeah.
It might have been even, when you got Michael Schumacher driving your car, it was the colours of Benetton. No, colours of Benetton. He even won 2 titles there. He was such a good driver. And then, as you quite rightly say, then Ferrari, and then it goes round in cycles. Now, Lewis Hamilton was extremely clever when he left Marlboro, and he'd been there since he was 14, and Ron, what's his name? You know, Ron Dennis was his mentor and all this kind of stuff.
Marlboro? Are you sure it was Marlboro?
Yeah, it was Marlboro and McLaren, wasn't it?
Don't you mean McLaren?
Yeah, well, I mean Marlboro.
Nobody calls it Marlboro.
Well, I do, because that's their first name.
Well, nobody
Marlboro
else calls
McLaren.
it that.
Well, I don't care. I don't care.
It
Marlboro
sounds
and McLaren.
ridiculous.
Well, it doesn't matter. Anyway, the point of the story is he chose to get out at the right time.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether somebody in the industry had come to him and said, you know, that the next great engine is going to be Mercedes or the next great car,
right.
or whether he simply just got it right. It looks like he's been overtaken, by the way, on the grid at the start.
Right.
Because his car, he was on pole. I think 4 of the cars might have overtaken him. We'll find out from Beaky, because Beaky's watching it for us, isn't he?
He is indeed.
He's a terrific F1 commentator, Beaky.
Oh, you're saying he's better than Graham Courtney?
Well, no, I'd say he's as
Because when
good
we had
as.
Graham Courtney on, he wasn't that good, was he? He couldn't remember one of the names of the drivers.
Graham Courtney's terrific.
And he
Graham
got
Courtney's...
Max Verstappen's name wrong.
No, he's a motoring expert.
Is he?
He's a motoring expert.
He's a top man, I know that.
Top man. But anyway, so as I'm saying, Lewis Hamilton suddenly jumps ship in Mercedes. What happens? He starts winning world titles for Mercedes. So a lot of it's luck and timing. You know, Jenson Button just happened to be with the best team that year when he won his one world title.
And this is his final season, isn't it?
This is his final season, and he's never come anywhere close to winning anything in any other of his 20... his 18 Formula One
You may be quite
seasons.
correct to say that Lewis Hamilton jumped at the right time.
Yes.
Because the one thing that he has had in his favour all along is a fantastic car. You know, he's never had a bad car.
Well, yeah,
whereas
but
Jenson Button has had a bad car.
Yeah, but hang on. The people who can offer the most money can produce the best cars and go after the best drivers.
You say that, but you think Ferrari would have the best car, wouldn't you?
Well, not necessarily. I mean, the point I'm making
if you
is...
put, say, your Mercedes downstairs next to the Ferrari downstairs, the Ferrari's a better car.
Yeah,
so why wouldn't Ferrari have a better engine?
Well, as a road car, as a domestic car, you're right. But I mean, on the track, it's all about technology. But I mean, you know, Michael Schumacher, he won 2 titles, didn't he, with Colours of Benetton, who I don't think even exist anymore and didn't exist before him. He was the team. Yeah. And then he decided, this is all very well, but this is a small team. I need a bigger stage. He goes to Ferrari, and for the first 2 years at Ferrari, they don't win anything. Do you know why?
Because the car wasn't right.
Exactly. And he was actually almost employed as a test driver for the first 2 years. Get in that car, Michael, drive around. When you get out the car, tell us what's wrong with it, we'll put it right.
I mean, if you took any one of the drivers, and I know people will argue about this until the cows come home, we'll ask Beaky about it in a second. If you took any one of the drivers currently in this race, put them in Lewis Hamilton's car, they'd have probably a 95% chance of winning the race.
Yes, except for the fact that what you've overlooked is that the reason the car is so good is because Lewis Hamilton has been driving it in test for a year before he gets into the car, and therefore tells his engineers and tells his mechanics and tells his scientists, I want you to do this, or we need to do that, or this needs to be done. What I'm saying is...
they're all capable of doing that, though, aren't they?
Well, are they? I mean...
I think a lot of them are. Max Verstappen, who's already won a Grand Prix, and he's only 18 years old.
Do you think he's getting a bit too big for his boots,
I don't think so, no.
I think he is.
How can you be too big for your boots at 18?
I saw
Formula
him,
One driver.
I saw him talking the other day, and he was talking very authoritatively of where he saw his role in the world of Formula One motor racing.
That's what you don't want some wilting flower sitting there, do you?
But what I'm saying is, and you seem to be able to pick up on this, I don't know whether you're just in a dozy, post-Saturday night coma or something.
I'll tell you a little bit about that later.
That'd be interesting, thank you. Is that Lewis Hamilton's car is designed for Lewis Hamilton. So when you say if another driver got in it, yes, it would be very efficient, but only efficient because Lewis Hamilton has managed to interpret what that car needs to make it the car it is.
Okay, all right. Well, I know you're in love with Lewis Hamilton, but I think it was
he's terrific. He's British and he's a great British hero.
This is Talk Sport. We are the two mics. We're going to do a bit of heroes and villains coming up a little bit later on. We've got Mark Halsey to talk about the refereeing scenario there, because that's quite a big story today. We've got, of course, Sam Allardyce taking his first game in charge of England.
I'm very worried about
against Slovakia. Well, you know, I'd have to
I'm worried because he's got to get a big victory.
Well, I agree with you. And the portents are not particularly good. I mean, he hasn't made that many changes to the team that played last in the Euros.
Very interesting, that, isn't it?
And
3 changes?
Yeah, 3 changes. I mean, he's left Wiltshire out, obviously, because he hasn't played very much. He's left Barkley out. because he never got a game in the Euros anyway.
That's right.
But I mean, the team isn't going to look that different, is it?
But
really?
just put Stones in. That's the main thing.
More experience in midfield is what he was talking about.
Yeah, I think the other interesting thing is that I've only just realised that if Wayne Rooney captains England through this campaign, by the time we get to Russia, he will be the overall record cap winner.
He will. How about this text that we've got, tweet actually we've got in at the 2 mics from Scott.
Oh, yeah.
I'm having to plug my ears a lot because I plan to watch the Grand Prix later after the football.
Well, I'm sorry,
so
you can't
should we
do
just,
that, mate.
Should we just not say anything about the Grand Prix so that Scott can be happy and not know what happened?
I don't know how anybody can watch live sport in delay. It's impossible. It's ridiculous. I mean, I've got, friends, relatives and all that.
Hang on a second. You said you didn't have any friends.
Well, you know what I mean. People I know, put it that way.
Okay.
And they say, I'm travelling home from holiday or something like that. Can you organise to get the Chelsea game or something like that?
Just
record
it so you can watch the whole thing.
I couldn't do that. Yeah. Once Everton have played, they've played. You can't get away from the results. And I mean, you've got to be
really. If you wanted to study the game or something.
Well, okay, you're a really dedicated fan and you want to see what the move was for the goal and all that. But the highlights in Match of the Day anyway. So, but anyway, look, some people are more dedicated than others. They like to see every minute of every game that their team play.
Indeed. Ross says this at the 2 mics. Porky's rendition of Bye Bye Baby just caused my pet budgie to burst into a squawking fit.
Oh, really?
Can we have a warning, please, next time?
No, not at all.
Hamilton's teammate, says Daniel. What's his name? The Scandinavian boy? Yeah. When did Germany become part of Scandinavia?
That's right. Sorry. He's got a Scandinavian-sounding name.
But a great Scandinavian show last night called Beck.
Beck, what's that?
It's like a police show from
another
from
one.
Sweden.
Another
really
who's
good.
in it? Kenneth Branagh.
Kenneth Branagh's not in it. No,
right.
No,
okay.
that's what do you call it? The war. What's his name? The one that begins with war. W, isn't it?
Yeah.
What's that one?
Warburg.
Warburg.
Is it?
No, it's not Warlock. No.
Warner.
No.
Okay,
Wallander is it?
Wallander.
Matt says, so Formula 1 goes round in cycles. Wouldn't they be faster in cars? Ho, ho, ho.
Oh, yeah, quite
Very
like
funny,
that,
Matt. Yeah,
hey, talking about cycles, by the way, I'm going to tell you a story about that in a minute, when we've got a minute.
Okay.
Because, I'm going to get one of those bikes that's got an engine.
Oh, you said that, yeah.
Yeah, guess what? They're going to ban them because they go too fast.
Yeah, it's advertising right behind you there.
What's that?
G-Tech.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, the G-Tech.
Is that the one you're going to get?
Well, I was going to, and they deliver it to your door. Yeah. But now, the 28-mile-an-hour e-bike speed pass legal limit.
Right.
It's apparently against the law to go that fast on a bike.
Well, I'll tell you what, you go faster on a bike in London on that than you would in a car.
Oh, you would.
I mean, I just struggled to get here and nearly didn't make it. I mean, the amount of traffic on the road today is just ridiculous.
Yeah,
I don't moan about it a lot.
Yeah, but the traffic management, as they call it in London, is so diabolically bad, invented by morons who presumably don't drive cars. I mean, behind all this, of course...
Keith Vaz had anything to do with it.
I don't think Keith Vaz shouldn't really be...
We shouldn't really be talking about that, no.
Shouldn't be talking about that at all.
So sordid story. Somebody's already asked me about what is it about Leicester and sordid orgies. I don't know whether there's some kind of connection there.
No, I don't think there is at all.
No.
But anyway, getting back to my bikes, right? So retailers are selling powerful electric bicycles with motors capable of breaking the regulations limiting their speed. Commuters have been filmed zipping along busy roads in London on battery-powered bikes that appear to be travelling faster than legal limits.
Right.
So this is something they've got to look at.
I must confess, I saw a guy driving up Hatfields outside here.
Look, on a G-Tech.
On one of those.
Yeah.
It wasn't a big one, it was quite small wheels. But he was going like the clappers.
Right, yeah.
I've never seen anything go so fast.
No.
He was literally jumping over the speed bumps.
It's crazy, isn't it?
But if you did get one of those, right, you have to get insured because, I mean, it's worth quite a lot. It's not worth a fortune. It's a few £100, isn't it?
Oh, no, about 900, I think.
900.
I think it's about £1,000.
So, I mean, you couldn't just lock it up like an ordinary bike,
No, I suppose not. No, because somebody...
You have to take it, like, into your flat.
Well, you'd have to, because people would, try harder to steal it, wouldn't they? Because it's worth more money and all that kind of stuff.
Can you disable it, I wonder, like you can a car?
I don't know, maybe you can. But, no, the traffic situation in London first started with old Ken, what's his name?
Livingston,
Ken Livingstone. He was the first guy to introduce what's now called the congestion charge.
Yes.
Ridiculous, just a tax on motorists. I mean,
it doesn't stop the congestion.
No, of course it doesn't. Ken Livingstone once said, I hate cars so much, I'd like to ban them all from all London roads. So he's just a maniac, who was allowed through our weak political structure,
Did you see that report last week
to start
as well?
this massive campaign against, thriving money-making
Did
motorists.
you see that report last week on Sky? That was a cycling report they did, but he did it in Manchester instead of doing it in London, which I thought was quite interesting, right? And, of course, the guy was cycling along the road and he was talking about how dangerous it was and how some people turned left when they, how he had to avoid parked cars and all the rest of it. But one of the things that struck me, a bit like here, whenever he was sat in the cycle lane talking to some, talking head or other, there was never anyone in the cycle lane.
There was nobody in the cycle lane.
There was never anyone in there.
nobody uses cycle lanes. What they do is they take half the tarmac that a road's made up of and give it over to a cycle lane, which cyclists then don't use.
Yes.
And if they do, they use it for an hour in the morning and an hour at night, and that's it.
I was very busy at night. I mean, when we coming in last week around 6 o'clock, you know, you see Blackfriars Road, loads and loads of bikes going down.
Right.
But throughout the course of the day, nothing.
No, nothing at all. And the other thing is, you've got to remember that, you know, all these, you know, so-called traffic management people like Ken Livingstone and then... I don't know why Boris Johnson jumped on the bandwagon of, I'm a cyclist, you know, because make himself feel popular or something. But if they're trying to imitate the Amsterdam model, I read a piece the other day from a cyclist who made the very good point that if you go to Amsterdam, and we've all been to Amsterdam, but a few times, people who ride around on bikes...
You remember it very well.
No, probably don't, no. Ride around on sit-up-and-beg bikes. And they don't have sit-up-and-beg bikes.
What's a sit-up-and-beg bike?
It's one that's got the handlebars that are turned round that you sort of rest on rather than the handlebars on a speed bike. You know what I mean?
I see. What you mean, like sort of an old lady's bike?
Yeah, an old lady's bike.
Sit-up-and-beg? Is that a known phrase?
Yeah, it is. You know.
I've never heard it.
Sit-up-and-beg bike is the one with the conventional handlebars.
Yeah, it's like call the midwife bike.
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely right. As is a sit-up-and-beg piano, the sort of piano that...
Is that an upright piano?
No, it's a sit-up-and-beg piano that Paul McCartney wrote. I do.
Well, does anybody else, though?
Yeah, they do. Yeah, loads of people do.
I've never heard anyone say that. I could be wrong.
The world calls them sit-up-and-beg. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make, you know, if you just get this into your grey matter, is that... if you go to Amsterdam, people ride round on sit-up-and-beg bikes. Yeah. They don't wear helmets and they don't wear lycra. They are literally using the cycle as a convenient way to get around Amsterdam.
Right.
Well, the problem with this country is, since we built all these cycle lanes, everybody now wants to be one of our great cycling heroes,
but also,
Sir Bradley Wiggins.
Yeah, but also all the cycling...
Chris Froome.
And all the cycling heroes.
Or the other guy, the Scots guy, Chris Hoy.
Sir Chris Hoy.
Sir Chris Hoy, that's right, yeah.
Yeah, but all those guys, and Laura Trott and everybody else, they're all calling for more money to be put into the...
I can't believe it.
Aren't they calling for 5% of the road building budget to be put towards cycling?
I cannot believe it. I cannot believe it.
5% doesn't seem very much.
Well, it's ridiculous. You know, these people, they come back from the Olympics, look, we won a few gold medals. Now, we're going to demand that the government spend another 5% of the transport budget on building cycle lanes. We don't want any more cycle lanes, Miss Trott.
Maybe that's the answer. Maybe that's the answer. How about this one from John, who's tweeted at the 2 mics? He says, Ken What's-a-Namer, is he related to all of Porky's other What's-a-Namers?
Yeah, that's right, he is, actually.
And how about this one on the England game from Gordon? Rooney will have the most caps and goals for England, but done nothing in tournaments. What a legacy. I think it's not being very kind to Mr. Rooney.
Hang on. No England player since '66 has done anything in a tournament. Don't single out Wayne Rooney for that.
You can't really say that about Euro '96, can you? I mean, Euro '96 was an exciting time if you were an England fan.
And they got how far? The semi-finals.
Well, they got the semi-finals. Yeah.
Went out on penalties to Germany. Had they got through, they would have played.
But that was I said this to you often. Yeah. That was the last England tournament I actually enjoyed watching.
Would have played Czech Republic in the final and would have won it.
Probably.
So I'm sorry, no. And by the way, Mark, there was no group of 16 in that tournament. It was simply the group games, quarterfinals, semi-finals. Yeah. Didn't have a lot of games to win.
No,
didn't have a lot of games to win.
But still, you'd have to go back that far to remember the last time you enjoyed watching England play.
It's pathetic that a major football nation as us is clinging at straws, you know, clutching at straws and clinging on by its fingertips to say, we got to the semi-final in '96. I mean, God.
No, all I'm saying is that's the last time I remember enjoying watching it.
Well,
I haven't enjoyed watching it since. I didn't enjoy the Euros. Yeah. Didn't enjoy Brazil. Didn't enjoy the previous Euros. Didn't enjoy the previous World Cup in South Africa. You know, it's been a nightmare.
I totally agree, and I went to a few of them, and it was harder being there than watching it on TV at home. Believe me, the sense of desolation.
Yeah. Have you ever been out to Slovakia before?
No, I don't think so.
Not even when it was part of Czechoslovakia.
I don't think so. No, I don't think I have.
You've never been to Prague?
Prague? No, I haven't been. I'd love to go to Prague, actually. It'd be great, wouldn't it? The Prague Spring and all that kind of stuff. Dubček.
That's right.
Dubček was the man who tried to break free of the yoke of Russian
Soviet oppression.
Of Soviet tyranny, and he started liberalising his country's ways. And what happened, as a newspaper boy... As a newspaper boy, aged about 8 or something like that, right? I got to the paper shop one morning early, first there, every morning. Yeah, I was always first.
How many other paper boys were there?
About 8.
8 paper
8 or 9. Yeah,
really?
It was a big paper shop. Yeah, right. And the van turned up with the posters, right? And a really old van, like a Morris Minor van or something like that. And a chap got out.
It would have been an old van, wouldn't it? It was a long time ago.
Yeah, and he said, "Morning, son." He said, "Did you know there's a war?"
And he driven all the way up from London.
No, this is in Chester.
Yeah, well, why was he talking like a Cockney? Right, son.
No, it would have been more like, "Morning, son. Did you know there's a war going on?" And then he opened the frame, you know, on where he used to put the newspaper bills, as we called them, and he put it in, and it said, Russia invades Czech.
Right.
And I said, I didn't even know where it was, you know. Right. But they soon smacked old Dubček it was, wasn't it?
Yes.
About the head and told him to get back in line. That was the end of the Czech Spring.
Yes, it was, It didn't last long. But
the
then,
Prague Spring.
But since then, of course, they've now split the country up, and it's now the Czech Republic and Slovakia.
It's more than that, isn't it?
Hey?
It's more than that.
No, that's just two
Czech
countries.
Republic, Slovakia.
Czech Republic and Slovakia.
There's a few others, though, aren't there?
Well, not within Czechoslovakia.
You sure?
Yeah, that was one country, now it's two.
Well, what about all the old Croatia, Serbia?
Well, they were part of Yugoslavia.
Well, Yugoslavia.
That's a different country altogether.
Okay.
That borders Italy.
Yeah, that's right.
It's on the Adriatic.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, it's nothing to do with Czechoslovakia.
Good.
For God's sake.
Glad we got that sorted.
We'll get a map out for you, shall we?
Yeah.
We'll get some more updates from Beaky coming up very shortly. This is Talk Sport. We are the Two Mikes.
If you hate me after what I say, can't put it off any longer. Just gotta tell her anyway. Bye bye baby, baby, goodbye baby, bye bye.
I don't care how old you are, that is a great song. No matter how many times you hear it, it just makes you smile. I just smiled at you, and I never smile at you.
It's one of the greatest records of my life, I'm telling you,
Is it?
because I remember it so well. It was so distinctive, so significant. I remember Les McKeown, the lead singer, sort of whirling backwards on the stage in a sort of semicircle as he sang it. So brilliant,
It was a much more innocent time, of course. We've got Les McKeown on now, not least because he's the Basic Rollers lead singer, not just because, of course, they're back doing a tour, but also, Les, because you're a Scotland fan as well. Very good afternoon to you.
Sorry, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for those lovely words.
No, not at all, Les. It's great to have you on the show.
I remember that twirl as if it was yesterday.
Can you still do it, is the question.
Exactly.
Aye, I can.
I'm sure you can. And actually, Les, before we start talking about the football, would you have ambitions maybe to write a Scottish anthem if the Scottish team successfully get to the finals in Russia?
It's in the works.
It's in the works. Great. I'm glad you told me that. That's excellent.
It can
Got
be
it
done
here first.
Yeah, let's just talk a little bit about the football because, it's later on tonight. 176 in the world, Malta is, right? And Gordon Strachan isn't taking any chances. He's basically saying, well, they're not as bad as they sound. They only lost 1-0 to Italy and 1-0 to somebody else. And, I mean, he's kind of underplaying it a bit, isn't he?
Well, we like going in there saying we're going to win, and then we get gubbed.
Yeah.
And then we go to the pub, have a wee drink, and forget about it.
Yeah, well, that's right. I mean, your best memories of football in Scotland, Les, must be Ali's Army. What was Ali's surname? Ali McCoy?
No, not Ali McCoy.
Sorry?
No, man,
that. But I mean, it was in South America, wasn't it? And half the players got sent home before the tournament
Well, a lot
started.
of the Scottish fans never made it back.
No, they never made it.
Still
back.
live there.
No, absolutely.
They're probably still there, yeah.
Yeah, they are still there. In fact, funny enough, Les, this is no joke. When I did the football championships in Lisbon in 2004, a taxi driver who took us around a lot was the son of a Scottish Celtic fan who never went home after the fantastic Celtic victory of '67. So, believe me,
there you go.
Yeah, it has. It's
a life-changing event.
It is a life-changing event. You're absolutely right. It's spread around the world. How much time do you get to be able to concentrate on the football, Les? Because you've got a very, very busy schedule at the moment. You're starting up with the rollers around the world again, aren't you?
Sometimes, I'm going. We're going all over the place. It's amazing. I've got a new album out called The Lost Songs. Songs that I started writing back in 1975, 76.
Wow. Yeah.
And they finally made it through the talents of John McLaughlin and his team up at Boombox.
Yeah.
So they've got me up in the big billboards there with the big cassette.
Yeah.
And that's going really well. I've got my own tour coming, starting on September the 8th. Goes all the way through to the end of November.
Yeah.
And then I start back with Alan for the Christmas Shang-a-Lang, Christmas shows.
That's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. How do you and the boys get on these days, Les? Because it's an awful long time to work together without falling out.
Well, I get on. I seem to get all right with my own band, but the old guys. I mean, sometimes you have like arguments and stuff, and we fall out for a couple of days, and then somebody says sorry, and then all right, then like what we're going to do, and get back on the track again. So it's a bit of a up and down kind of thing, but it went so well last year. I mean, I'm sure if anybody listening came to the shows, they would have reported that they had an absolute ball. It was a great sellout. It was brilliant.
And were you surprised that the people, because you got new fans now as well as some of the older ones who remember you from the first time around? I mean, were you surprised at how popular it still is?
I was surprised. We wanted to do one gig at the iconic Barrowland, and we were looking forward to maybe even like 75% sales, even thinking that big. But after like 3 minutes, we'd sold out 4 gigs.
Yeah, Les, I told the story earlier. I was a young reporter on the Evening Chronicle in Newcastle in the days when you were at your height.
I remember it well, yes.
Yeah, that's right. And you went and did a gig there, and the guy who wrote the review, who was a bit older than most other people, said that he thought you were not very good. And we had then young ladies turning up at the newspaper office threatening to kill this guy. I mean, did the sheer scale of the intensity of what all happened to you as very young men, that must have shocked you to the core in those days?
It really did. I mean, they were very feverish about us. Let's say the fans wouldn't take any bleep from anybody. Radio DJs would get it in the neck if they said anything bad about their favourite roller. Yeah,
they would indeed. Whose idea was it to put all the tartan on the clothes? Seriously, because that was the winner, wasn't it? I mean, that's what you were distinctive for.
Yep, that was definitely it. That was it. I don't know. It was staring us in the face all the time, wasn't it? We're from Scotland.
Yeah.
Half of the Scottish people wear kilts, don't they?
well, absolutely.
Well, of course. I mean, you're from Edinburgh, Les, originally, aren't you? Which is one of the reasons why people have said about you before. It's why you're not a massively sort of football fanatic, because Edinburgh, the two teams are not particularly brilliant, are they?
Yeah, pretty crap. Yeah.
Yeah, they're not. They're just
that's a bit harsh.
Just not very good. Yeah. So but I mean,
they were back in the day. I don't know if they've got any better.
Right.
But we were always caused problems for me because I had to pass by. When in Gorgie Road, we had the
Hearts,
the team in Gorgie Road, Hearts, yeah. And there was always thugs out there when I had my Lambretta throwing bottles at me and stuff. So I didn't have a great introduction to football either, because my big brother Ronnie took me to a New Year's game. I think it might have been Celtic and Hearts.
Yeah,
it's at the Hibernian ground in Edinburgh.
There,
and I got a bottle on the head then as well.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
Ended up in the back of an ambulance.
It can be quite rough.
Well, it's not as bad, because we were up in Edinburgh just last weekend.
We were
for the Edinburgh Festival. I know you were up there as well. But I mean, if you walk through Edinburgh, you hear more English voices than you do Scottish voices these days.
So you do, eh?
It's called culture and what it's all about. So when you're next back up on a stage, Les, then you say this month or next month you're doing it yourself, and then you've got your Christmas shindig with the rollers, have you?
Yeah, that's what I've got. Let me see, I start on September the 8th in Leeds.
Leeds, that's great. Yeah, like Leeds. Yeah, it's good city, Leeds. And when you go on your own, Les, do people want you to sing all the Rollers songs, or do you have your own repertoire?
That's what I do. It's called the Basic Roller starring Les McKeown, or Les McKeown's Basic Rollers.
Yeah.
Just so they inform them that that's what they're going to hear.
Yeah.
On this tour, I'll be doing a variety of 4 of my new stuff from a new album, and just revolving it around the whole album type of thing, just to get used to playing it live with the band again.
Sure.
Before I go to America and Japan in February.
Yeah, I see. Fine. Do you keep in touch with all the other group members? Because after you, the most famous one was Woody. Are you and he still?
Yeah. Well, we had we got together there in December. We had a little bit of a fallout, and looks like things might come back together again.
Excellent.
Alan's always been the peacemaker, and so he inevitably gets us all back together on the right track.
Yeah, okay, that's great.
We've even been talking with Eric to see. Eric's not been well, but he should be. Who knows?
Yeah.
I might put the whole 5 of them on the stage again.
Well, it'd be fantastic. I mean, me and my broadcasting partner, the 2 mics, I constantly have to upbraid him for his outrageous behaviour, always let me down, getting drunk, misbehaving. But, eventually you just sort of sort it out through creative differences.
Exactly right. Now, do you want to, before we let you go, Les, and I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us, you want to give us a quick prediction for the Malta-Scotland game? Because, I mean, you can't really lose this one,
It's going to be Scotland, isn't it? Well, by at least 5 goals.
5 goals. Okay. Well, you might want to inject some of that positivity over to the Gordon Strachan camp, because he's obviously not feeling quite so confident about that.
Right.
But great stuff. This is Talk Sport. We are the two mics. We're going to do heroes and villains coming up a little bit later on. We'll also be talking about the refereeing scandal, if that's not too strong a word for it, after what Mr. Halsey said.
Well, it's a very explosive debate.
It certainly is. We're going over to Slovakia as well, if I can just say it correctly. Yeah. And also, of course, it's the Italian Grand Prix at Monza. Porky was singing the praises of Lewis Hamilton just before it started, and I'm afraid he had a bit of a blunderous start. Let's go back to Beaky, who's watching it for Talk Sport. Beaky.
Yes, he certainly did. And between Hamilton. Just to clear up something you were talking about before, gentlemen, Nico Rosberg, born in Germany, the son of the former Finnish, or rather he is Finnish, former Formula One driver, Keke Rosberg. Yes. So, a Finnish name, German driver.
Absolutely
that
right.
Would be hence the confusion about Scandinavia.
Well, yes, indeed.
Yeah, but Beaky, I think a lot of Germans just barely regard him as German, don't they, really? I think since the age of about 13 he's lived in Monaco or something, and you know, he is only German by definition.
Well, maybe, but
by definition,
they'd still take him as a world champion.
Well, of course they would.
What do you mean German by definition?
Well,
what are you talking about?
Well, Biggie's just explained his father was Finnish, right?
And is he a German citizen or not?
Well, yes, I think he is these days.
Well, then he's not just German by definition.
Yeah, but he hasn't lived there for a long time.
He's German.
You know. Yes, German. Okay.
I mean, I think we can go with that.
Yeah.
Now,
Pseudo-German.
Here's a problem that a lot of people have on a Sunday before the afternoon kicks off. This is from Ross, who tweeted at IROMG. I went to the co-op at 9 a.m. and was trying to buy a box of beer, and they couldn't serve me. It's got to be one of the worst rules ever. And he says, just for the record, I wasn't planning on starting drinking it until about 12.
Yeah, why wouldn't they serve them too early?
Well, I guess on Sundays they have Sunday training rules for alcohol, don't they?
No, they don't.
Well, because they must have in some shops.
Well, I think they vary from shop to shop. I've been in shops, right, and I understand what this guy's saying. What you can tell is, you know, they have these what do you call these things you pull down over the counter?
What, you mean like sort of blinds?
Yeah, blinds. They have a blind that comes down and says, you know, alcohol not for sale at the moment. If you go in and that's not there...
But that's normally only after a certain time of night.
Yeah.
And on a Sunday.
It's not normally ever at a certain time of night. If the shop's open, they'll sell the alcohol late into the night. That's not a problem. But I mean, it's sometimes...
I've certainly been in supermarkets Sunday morning and the alcohol aisles are all closed off.
I've seen that, but I've also been into smaller sort of corner shop type places.
Yeah, well, that's a different rule.
Exactly, where they just say you want it, you can have it. You know, we'll sell you anything you want. So I don't think it's a very consistent rule.
Right. I'm hoping you're not going to tell us that you're out there buying alcohol on a Sunday morning on a regular basis.
Well, sometimes you do if you're in the car and you've got to go somewhere or something like that. You know, you might need it.
I was flying out of New York once on a Sunday morning, and the mother of my children doesn't like to fly without having a drink.
Right. Okay.
But they wouldn't give her one because they can't serve alcohol in New York State on a Sunday morning before midday.
In the liquor stores and all that.
No, at the airport as well.
Oh, and at the airport?
Even at the airport.
I didn't realise that.
Yeah.
What, even in the lounges?
This is past
security. If I was in the
security.
business lounge?
Yeah, no, I wasn't in the business lounge.
But if I had gone in the business lounge, I hope they wouldn't have imposed that ridiculous rule on me.
Well, it might be if they're giving it away, maybe that's different, but they're certainly not allowed to sell it.
Yeah. Well,
which is a bit of a problem.
I see this here. Yeah, got to be one of the worst rules ever. That's from Ross. Yeah, I see that.
I just read that.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Neil says this. I don't know why Porky's got so much property. You might as well live in Talksport Towers.
Well, listen, I want to talk to you about that.
You're always here.
Well, no, not really. We're not always here, are we? But we interviewed Eddie the Eagle, didn't we, very recently?
We did, yeah, a couple of weeks ago. And because the DVD of the movie came out.
Exactly, DVD of the movie came out, and he's had a sort of revitalisation of his career and all that. So it comes as a bit of a shock today to read an interview with him in the Sunday Times. Yeah. And it's on the back of the money section. And what they do is they ask you all these questions. Yes. What was your first house?
Yeah.
And, do you invest in pensions or property? Okay. And how much have you maximum earned in a year? And all that kind of stuff. And poor old Eddie's revealed he's actually living in the shed.
What?
So this
a shed in the garden?
Yeah.
What, now?
Yeah. Eddie the Eagle, the ski jump underdog who competed in the 1988 Winter Olympics, is living in a garden shed and surviving on egg sandwiches after being financially wiped. What are you laughing at? This is not funny.
Because it's an amusing scene.
This poor guy.
Well, whose shed is he living in?
His own shed.
Well, he can't just live in a shed.
Well, hang on, listen, let me tell you. Being wiped out by his divorce. I don't know what you're laughing at.
Well... as somebody who was very nearly wiped out by divorce, I have some sympathy with him.
Yeah, his first name, by the way, is really Michael, not Eddie. So it says, Michael Eddie Edwards reveals that the divorce from his wife, Samantha Morton, has taken 85% of his wealth, including the £180,000 he received for the film of his life released in March.
Oh, dear.
Now, that's all gone. That's all gone, right?
I knew somebody called Samantha Morton. It can't be the same one, can it?
Well, I don't know.
I'll have to have a look now.
I don't know, yeah.
Samantha Morton.
So... he says, I moved into the shed in my garden while developing my new house. Yeah. I've lived off sandwiches ever since, as I don't have a kitchen. He said, what's it going to be like to start from scratch again? He said, well, I haven't thought about it too much. I'd get depressed if I did. I made it once in life, it went away. I made it twice. I think I can do it again. He's only 52, by the way. Right. I didn't realise that. And he was married to Ms. Morton for more than 10 years.
Really?
But the divorce was finalised this year. They've got 2 young daughters. He is, however, used to a frugal life. Well,
this is not Samantha Morton, the actress, is it? Because it doesn't say that she was married.
It doesn't say she is an actress, no.
It must be a different woman.
He says...
this one got an honorary degree of Doctor of Letters from Nottingham Trent University. How about that?
You mean the University of the Trent that I went to, yes. He's used to a frugal life while training for the ski jump at the 1988 Games in Calgary, Canada. He slept in his car, ate food out of bins, and could not afford the petrol to get to ski events. That's pretty bad.
Yeah.
Despite earning global fame after finishing last at Calgary, Eddie was declared bankrupt in 1992, so I'm afraid this sort of problems afflicted him before, claiming the trust fund into which he had placed his earnings had not been properly managed. This year should have been a landmark as the biopic of his life starring Taron Egerton, Hugh Jackman and Christopher Walken. Didn't realise Christopher Walken was in that.
Christopher Walken was in it.
He's a big name.
Yeah, he's a massive name, yeah. He's the guy from The Deer Hunter, obviously.
Yeah, that's right.
Now and all that.
Yeah.
But, I mean, we talked to him about this, and I said, because I asked him, remember, if he met Christopher Walken?
Yes.
And he said he hadn't.
Oh, that's right,
Which was a bit unfortunate, really.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. But it was based on a memoir Eddie wrote in 1988 and he received the 6-figure paycheck earlier this year.
Right.
He said, unfortunately, I had to give all of that money to my ex-wife. I still haven't paid the tax on it.
Sounds like he doesn't have much of a good lawyer, to me.
Well, also, if he's got to pay, if that's 180 grand, he's got to pay the normal tax on it, you're looking at nearly half of that.
Yeah.
And a tax bill. This is terribly sad.
It is sad. But, I mean, in whose shed is he living? Because
his own shed. Well, his house is being redeveloped.
Oh, so his house is being sold or something?
Well, it doesn't say. It says his house is being developed. I don't quite know what that means.
So she's not living in the house then, presumably?
Well, I don't know the answer to that one either.
Right.
It just says while his house is being developed. Anyway...
Maybe we should get him back on and find out what's going on.
Maybe we should. He said, here we go. He said, I've had to sell my flat in Bedford, which I bought about 30 years ago, to pay the anticipated tax bill that's going to come in. He will also have to pay capital gains of $175,000 on his property. He says at least 90% of the money in that account is earmarked for tax. He says, my barrister argued that I signed the film rights 17 years ago and only met my wife about 10 years ago.
Right.
But they said no. If they had tried to make the film this year, I'd have been fine. The divorce would have been sorted. But because we had children and other factors, I ended up losing 85%. I am now wiped out.
Wow.
He has a mortgage on the new home near Stroud in Gloucestershire. And in between sponsorship and speaking engagements, he works as a plasterer. This is so terribly tragic. Which was his original trade.
Well, hang on. I know you're now feeling very sorry for this guy, but
Yeah.
were you not on another radio station, which is not to be named at this
Yes.
particular juncture,
Yes.
while I was away on holiday, giving him some clog for
No.
being a loser?
No.
I'm pretty sure you were.
No, I wasn't. No, believe me.
I'm pretty sure you were.
No, he came on. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
It was the Jeremy Vine show.
Well, I wasn't going to name it.
It doesn't matter. And what happened was...
Your mate, the cyclist.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah.
And I was going on about the canoeist,
Yeah.
about, why canoeists and all that. Eddie came on to fight the case for Olympians, and I said, actually, Eddie, you're one of the few Olympians I've got huge respect for, because you had no resources, you had no backing, you had no financial...
And he's got no medals either.
no medals, but you got on with it and did it. So I know...
But he didn't win anything.
He didn't win anything.
And your whole mantra is about winning.
Yeah, my whole mantra is winning, but the reason he took it up was he realised there wasn't any other ski jumper in the England team, so if he applied, they had to accept him, no matter how bad he was.
Right.
And that was a brilliant stroke and a brilliant move. I think he's a great guy, and I'm very sorry to hear that he's sort of fallen on hard times.
As long as you're consistent in your view of it, I
Yep.
suppose that's okay. Good afternoon, I'm Mike Graham, he's Mike Parry. You're listening to the Two Mikes on TalkSport. We've been called up for international duty, of course. It's the big one for Big Sam. His first outing as a New England manager. Porky's sure it's going to be a great one, or at least he says it has to be a great one. We'll be going straight over to Slovakia later on this hour to see what's changed in the camp since the Euros. And, of course, we are keeping you updated with all the action from the Italian Grand Prix at Monza. It's Rosberg, Hamilton 1 and 2 at the moment, 11 seconds between them, but that could get bigger. 08717 22 3344. You're listening to the Two Mikes with me, Mike Graham, and Mike Parry on TalkSport. This is Talk Sport. We are the Two Mics.
Yep.
There will be a podcast, as ever, coming out a little bit later on.
Indeed.
We're going to talk to John Cross over in Trnava, over in Slovakia, a little bit later on. They've had a few problems over there in the stadiums and with this sort of racist abuse and stuff going on.
Yeah,
so
all that kind of stuff.
That's going to be put under control as well.
Yes.
But this is a massive, massive event for Big Sam, isn't it?
It certainly is, and, we haven't really focused on it yet, but we should now, because the point is there's a sense of terrific optimism, right? And that sense of terrific optimism will, of course, help the feel-good factor in this country before the game, but I don't know whether it'll help the players over there who might take the feel-good factor in England as being pressure for them to have to do the job. Now, Slovakia are not that bad. We know that because we've recently played them.
Well, it was 0-0 in the Euros, wasn't it?
Absolutely right.
Although that has to be one of the worst England performances that particular tournament,
I totally agree, but nevertheless, they've got home advantage. Big Sam will be, for the first time, telling his team how he wants them to play, so it's not like he's got yet a consistent pattern of, procedure or play or tactics or anything like that. If you talk to the experts, and I've been trying to do a bit of that, yesterday and today, they'll tell you, well, there are certain things that are going to be obvious to Sam, that he's got to go wide and get behind their defence because they're very solid the last time we played them, and we didn't use our wing-backs enough and that sort of thing, and so he's got to come up with all these challenges and come out at the end of the day with a victory. I don't think a draw will do.
Yeah, but he's already said, basically, if the nation thinks that the win is the only thing we can have to make us feel better, we'll try. He says, but personally, if we get a draw from the most difficult game of the group, I'll be happy. Now, I suppose that's realistic.
Well, it's realistic in the sense that he's given himself some wriggle room, isn't it? And that's a psychological thing. But look, the one that I focused on was the one difference between today's games and the one in Euros is that Slovakia will not be as defensive as they were then. That's obvious, because if you see what I mean, then they were clinging on for that point, and now they're at home and they're at the start of a new campaign, so they're going to be a lot more outgoing, which football experts tell me, when the opposition come at you, gives you the chance to get behind them.
It does, And what do you make of the releasing of the team sheet 48 hours early, which is an unusual thing to do in international football? I mean, Hodgson never used to do that.
I've never quite understood this secrecy about, don't name the team until the last minute. I mean, every football match I've ever gone to, usually when I'm in somewhere, I don't know, some executive lounge or something like that, the frisson of excitement goes around when the girl walks in with the team sheet, and says, here's the team. To be perfectly honest, it's never grabbed me like that. And sometimes you can be dyslexic. You can read a team sheet and think, that's okay. But you forget the ones who've been left out.
Well, sometimes it also focuses your mind on who has been left out.
That's
and you suddenly get disappointed when you go, well, why is so-and-so not playing?
Exactly, or why is he playing in that position? Or something like, or why is he on the substitutes bench? So I've never really... I mean, I suppose that purists in football would say yes, but, if one particular player is on the substitutes bench and he's not in the team to start, that means it's an indication of what style the manager's going to play.
Right.
I can understand that.
But why do you think he doesn't like Dele Alli?
I'm not sure that he doesn't like Dele Alli. I just think
he doesn't want him for this game.
Doesn't want him for this game. He thinks he's not right for the game. I mean, it's very interesting that John Stones is starting because John Stones has had a wretched sort of recent international history. Well, he didn't even get off the bench.
Well, he's had a pretty wretched time of it, I would say, in the last season, all told, at Everton as well, hasn't he?
I would agree. I mean, listen, I have to say, I quite like this team. Now, we said that we didn't think Hart would be playing, but Fraser Fuster's injured, so he's back in. But the two full-backs I'm with, Rose and Walker, okay. The two centre-backs, well, John Stones will, I suppose, emerge as a great player, because that's what...
Well, I mean, if anyone's going to make him a great player, Pep Guardiola's going to do that,
Well,
right?
You'd think so. You'd think so. He was a great player at Everton, I thought, but he just kind of overstretched.
Well, he kind of lost the plot, though, didn't he?
Well, he was too confident. He thought he was Franz Beckenbauer about 3 years before he's going to be.
See how Martinez lost his first game with Belgium, by the way.
Yeah, I know. Wasn't it 2-0? Wasn't it? Yeah. You see,
he's already started with the excuses.
He has already started with the excuses. I've no idea why he was appointed as the manager.
No.
Louis van Gaal.
I think somebody
went for the job, don't you?
I think so. Did he?
Yeah.
I think somebody at Sunderland actually paid them off to give him the job, so he didn't come to Sunderland.
Yeah, but I mean, considering that not so recently Belgium were rated as the top team in the world.
Well, everyone kept saying it's the second best team in the world. They kept turning up to tournaments and not doing anything.
Not doing anything. So it's a bit odd, isn't it? But listen, just going through it then. I'm okay with Dyer.
Yeah.
I'm not quite so okay with Henderson.
Yeah.
You know, maybe...
But he's another player that may get better under Klopp, right? And a lot of Liverpool fans will say, we love Jordan Henderson. We think he's great.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. Lallana, I'm fine with. But, if Dele Alli had played instead of Henderson, it's some sort of formation in the midfield. Now,
I think Sam regards Henderson as a bit more solid. Though,
I think he does. I think he does. Dyer, I'm fine with. I think he'll be a future England captain. I think after Rooney steps down, he says he's going to do it in 2 years or maybe even sooner. I think Dyer looks very solid to me. And then the front three, if you want to call them, Sterling. Yeah. Well, he's
already had a better season now for Manchester City than he's ever had.
I said last season he wouldn't score 5 Premier League goals. In fact, he scored 6, but he scored 3 in one game alone. Yeah. He looks much more together now.
He does.
Than he did last season. He didn't seem to know what to do last season, to be honest.
I mean, one of the things he's also very good at, it would seem, and I don't wish to cast aspersions on him, but he's quite good at getting fouled. And I mean, that can be quite useful in international football. Outside the area, inside the area.
Certain positions.
He does go down quite well.
If you've got Dyer taking those free kicks, you're absolutely right. And then, the front two, Kane up front. Now, I didn't realise Kane hasn't scored for 12 games, country and club. He hasn't scored for 12 games. So, do you know what? That is a great mark of confidence that Sam Allardyce is showing in Harry Kane, giving him that ahead of Vardy, when you think that Vardy really is the more prominent striker. You know what I mean? I mean, certainly in terms of returns of goals. Yeah. And then behind him, Wayne Rooney. I'd always played Rooney, and I might have played Vardy instead of Kane. But I remember when I worked with Terry Venables at England.
When you worked with Terry Venables?
Yes.
How do you mean?
Well, Venables was the England coach, and I was his director of communications.
Are you sure?
You know what I mean? I'm very sure,
okay.
What do you mean, am I sure?
Well, I thought you
How
were
could
the
you
guy.
Forget that?
Well, I thought you were the guy in the background, when you see that picture from Dublin.
Yes.
When it all went horribly wrong. There was vandalism and violence and all that.
Yes.
And Graham Kelly standing there addressing the press.
That's right.
And you're kind of standing furtively behind him.
Yeah.
Looking very, very sort of ginger.
I've been writing all Graham's scripts, don't worry.
Yeah, no, I'm not worried about it.
Yeah.
But you look slightly less significant than you're making out.
Well, I always try to work in the shadows. I don't like to be too prominent and up front. You know
that
what
right?
I mean?
Yeah.
And but Terry kept kept selecting Alan Shearer. Yeah. And Shearer went game after game after game without scoring.
But how could you not select Alan Shearer?
Well, exactly. And Terry just refused. All the pressure. And he was getting reading headlines and all that kind of stuff. Time for Shearer to stand down. Right. He said no. Alan Shearer's the best. And of course, in the end, it came right because Terry was a very good coach.
Right. Well, Shearer was a magnificent player.
Yeah,
and
he was.
Fantastic goal scorer as well. Just going back to Eddie the Eagle, Jimmy, who remembers that interview you did earlier in the year, shall we say, last month. You slated Eddie before you interviewed him, Mr. Parry.
No, I don't think I did. No.
Well, he says you did.
No,
I'm willing to believe Jimmy.
I don't think so, honestly. I think you've misread it. But, no, I mean, look, it's going to be a fascinating game. It's 5 o'clock. Now, where will you be watching this game today?
I think I'll probably be watching it at my home in London.
Yes, OK, that's fine, good.
What do you mean that's fine, good?
Well, I want you to concentrate on it. I don't want you to be in a bar somewhere, getting
I won't be in a bar.
And all that kind of
stuff.
No,
I drove in this morning, right, and it took nearly all day to get here.
Yeah, no,
and so I will not be visiting a bar, but I may have a glass of wine while I'm watching it.
Yeah, well, okay, that's a good idea.
I'm wondering whether I should make some kind of Slovakian food in order to sort of, get myself into the mood.
What's wrong with you?
What do you mean, what's wrong with me?
Why would you want to eat Slovakian food?
Well, I don't know what Slovakian food is. I've never been to Slovakia, so I might just have a look in a cookbook and see whether I can find something Slovakian to make. Like, I know Hungarian food. I can make like a chicken paprika or something like that.
What's Hungarian food mostly consist of? Is it pork?
Well, a lot of pork, a lot of goulash.
Goulash. What's goulash?
Goulash can be beef or pork or chicken.
Okay.
It's not really
That's
chicken.
like a stew, is it?
It's kind of a stew, but it's a tomato-y-based stew.
Oh, tomato-y. I don't like tomato stews. No, I like beef stews,
Yeah, well, I mean, you can make it more beefy or less beefy. It's up to you.
Anyway, I shall be dining at one of the Parry residences.
Are you having a family get-together?
It's roast lamb today.
Is it?
I'm so looking forward to it.
Yeah.
We're going to watch the first half, right?
I love some roast lamb.
We're going to watch the first half, and then I think we're sitting down.
We haven't got a lot of time
for the second half.
You've got to get down into Stockbroker Belt Surrey.
We've got a very big telly in the room, so we can all watch it while we're dining. You know what I mean? Which is great. Yeah.
That's not civilised behaviour.
Oh, I think it's pretty
you should
civilised.
have dinner after the game.
Well, that's a bit late then.
Dinner. You can't have dinner and watch the game.
Well, the family are all hanging on for me because, of course, I'm doing this show. So I don't want to then impose a new set of rules on. We're only eating after the game. I mean,
why don't they eat before you get there, and then you can just catch up? No, you could have a plate on the side.
No, because we're eating as a family. That's why. We do these things.
You don't do anything else as a family.
Sorry?
Why would you do that?
Of course we do.
You don't do anything else as a family.
No. They're a busy family.
When was the last time you had a family get together?
A couple of weeks ago.
A couple of weeks ago?
Yeah, in Bournemouth, I think, wasn't it? Right. Isn't it? Yeah, it was. It was my... it was
your brother-in-law's birthday,
my brother-in-law's birthday, yeah, we got down there. So, no, it's...
Well, did you all eat together that day?
We certainly did.
Okay.
In actually...
Hard to keep up with your busy social schedule.
In a skyscraper-type restaurant overlooking the whole of Bournemouth.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, how nice. Yes, I didn't realise any skyscrapers in Bournemouth.
Oh, yeah, there are, yeah. Well, up on the cliff there, you see. If you go up on the cliff there, it's very high.
Well, it is, yeah, but there's no skyscrapers, are there?
Yeah, there are, yeah.
Those are tall buildings.
Towers, yeah. Towers.
Really? How tall?
Pretty tall.
Like what, 50 feet? 50 stories?
Well, if you take it that the cliff's 300 or 400 feet high, and you put it on top of there, that's high.
Well, yeah, but you can put a bungalow on the top of the Mount Everest. It doesn't make it a skyscraper.
No, but it makes it a building at a very great height.
Yeah, right.
Yeah?
Okay.
Yeah.
You like being at a great height?
Yeah, I do, yeah.
Good.
Crazy, but that's how it goes.
This is Talk Sport. We are the two Mikes. Ian has tweeted at Mike Parry 8 and at IROMG. A tall building on top of a cliff does not make it a skyscraper. Porky the plank strikes again. But we'll get more into that a bit later on. It's time to check in with Beaky. He's watching the Italian Grand Prix. How's it going, Beaky?
Yeah, we're close to the end. Lap 50. At least he's come in second and limited the damage.
That's right. Indeed he has.
Well, indeed he has. But, of course, you tipped him to win the race. So once again, the Porky jinx has kicked in. Beaky, thank you very much indeed. Now, here's one from William. It says, it's Sunday, MG. Are we having Porky's interpretation of a Bible passage? We do normally have a Porky
we do,
on a Sunday. So should we do a bit of that later?
Well, I'm not sure that it's the right mood for it, really, to be honest. I think just
you don't want to give a message to the England players?
I don't really. No. I don't mind doing it. I mean, if you think it's a useful addition.
We'll take a sounding from our producer.
Yeah, I think I can interpret, no problem at all, but I'm in sort of football head mode at the moment.
Okay,
you know what I mean?
All right. But you say the two things don't really mix.
Well, I can make them mix. I can. I'm capable of doing that.
Popping down to the church after the game, perhaps?
No. If I go to church on Sunday, I go in the morning. I don't like the eventide stuff.
Don't you?
No. Usually had a
drink
as well.
A bit fast flowing for you.
That's right, yeah. Listen, I've got now this is interesting because I spoke up for Jordan Henderson, didn't I?
You did.
And then what did you say about him?
Well, I said I thought a lot of Liverpool fans thought that he was a great player and they were very glad that he was part of the England makeup. But we've had one tweet, haven't we? Somebody says that's not the case.
He says, I can speak for most Liverpool fans. We don't think Henderson is any good. He offers us nothing in midfield. Comes from somebody called Timor.
Yeah.
But
I'm not sure all Liverpool fans feel that way, to be honest.
Well, I don't mind talking to a Liverpool fan if the Liverpool fans want to get hold of us
and
tell
phone
us
number
what they
to call
think.
us?
Yeah. The other one is, by the way...
Well, should I then?
Sorry?
I said, should I give them the phone number?
I just said, yes, please, give them a phone number.
Well, then you kept talking.
Oh, I see. Right.
08717 223344. I would have been under the impression...
Could you repeat that a bit slower, please?
08717 223344.
Excellent, that's good, great. Okay.
Thank you.
And the other fans who, if you want to get in touch this afternoon, because I think this is quite an interesting issue, is does anybody know what's the position with Tony Pulis at West Bromwich Albion?
Well, my understanding, which is probably no greater than perhaps yours or anybody else's, is that he is going to leave the club once this new kind of takeover business is sorted out.
What makes you think that?
Well, because somebody told me that.
Well,
who would be normally somebody I would rely upon for a good piece of information.
Now, apparently, and I'm happy to be righted by any West Brom fans out there. Righted,
or corrected even.
Or corrected, yeah. So give us a call if you want to contribute to this debate. But apparently there was a friendly at West Brom yesterday because, of course, there was no league football and he didn't turn up for it. Or he wasn't at the ground for it. Or, I mean, who knows?
Certainly things are not as they should be.
He could have been on a scouting mission. He could have been involved in club business elsewhere or something like that. But it looks, a little bit like there might be some sort of distance between himself and his employers at the moment.
Yes, I think so. I think there's also a kind of a bit of a sort of chagrin between him and the management and the owners about how many players have come into West Brom.
Yeah, and is there some issue about Saido Berahino? Because it looks, even though the transfer window is closed, you can still offload players to the continent, can't you?
Well, you can, yeah.
Yeah, and I was reading stuff this morning saying that it may well be he's still going to go out there because
Well, he's still not happy there, is he?
Apparently not.
No.
Apparently not.
No, well, let's find out what happened.
But apparently if that happens, it'll cost West Brom millions, because if he goes now, because of the state of his contract, he could go for, less than £1 million or something, when obviously he's been valued on the books at up to £20 million at some stage over the last kind of 18 months.
Yeah, no, things at West Brom are not looking terribly good. Let's go back, though, to Beaky, who's been watching the Italian Grand Prix. I think you got a result for us, Beaky.
Yes, we have. It's all over, and as predicted from quite some way out, really, Nico Rosberg has won the race.
So not Lewis Hamilton, then?
No,
so
not Lewis Hamilton.
He got back to second place, so I suppose he's limited the damage in terms of the points difference, hasn't he?
Now, Rosberg's won the last two now, hasn't he?
Yes, he has,
After Hamilton won the previous 6.
Yeah, because he was penalised for the last one.
Yeah, that's right.
He had to go all the way back on the grid.
Yeah, that's right, the 55-second penalty.
Yeah, so the next Grand Prix will be key then, won't it?
Yeah, where is it, do you know?
I'm not sure.
Neither do I.
No.
But it will be key. There can only be about half a dozen left, something like that. Yeah, something like that. I don't know why I have this. Why don't they have a summer break in Formula One? I've no idea.
Why do they have a summer break?
Yeah.
Well, they don't need to have one, do they?
No, they have 3 or 4 week break, don't they? Normally it's every 2 weeks.
Sometimes it's because they start because they start sort of down in the Far East, don't they? And so then when they come back to Europe, they need a bit of a break to get all the slack back. I suppose,
that's right.
Which is fair enough.
Yeah, I tell you what else I noticed. Mario Balotelli, searching around for a club.
So he was slagging off Jamie Carragher.
He's slagging off everybody, and what I thought was most funny was Jurgen Klopp has been described as a piece of filth by Mario Balotelli's agent. Yeah,
it's a bit harsh.
Yeah.
Well, he referred, because Jamie Carragher apparently had said that giving him away for free was still not worth the money, or something like that, which is quite a funny thing to say.
That's right.
And basically he came back with, he was a nothing player. He was never really good. I don't rate him.
Oh yeah, he says it. Jamie Carragher, bad player, wonderful hater. At Cara, who cares?
Yeah.
I mean, the problem with Mario Balotelli is he definitely believes that everybody else in the world who thinks that he's trouble and difficult to deal with and maybe lacking in certain talent, they're all wrong.
Yes.
They're all wrong.
Right.
and Mario Balotelli is right.
Yeah,
that's right.
Well, it must be difficult when you make that kind of money to be convinced that somehow you're no good. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
because you're walking around doing whatever you want to do.
Absolutely.
Buying, Ferraris left, right and centre.
That's right, absolutely.
He had that. Did he not have that camouflage Bentley?
Yeah, camouflage Bentley and all that.
It was a great idea. A few fireworks in the apartment.
Going into shops and literally buying the whole shop and having it shipped to his house in a fleet of lorries and all this kind of stuff. But I didn't realise that Balotelli cost Liverpool £1 million a game.
Yes.
Balotelli made just 16 Premier League appearances after a £16 million switch from AC Milan. He should never have gone there, should he?
That was a Brendan Rodgers move.
It was Brendan Rodgers move, and Brendan Rodgers again, and this is a sign of the way managers sometimes misjudge things. He thought he could turn the bad boy into a good boy,
right.
And and after he'd had such a public sort of what's the word I'm looking for? Emptiness at Manchester City. Why was he ever going to get any better at Liverpool?
No. Well, you have to think Mancini was a much better manager perhaps than Brendan Rodgers was, in the sense that, if he could have got him to work, but if he couldn't get him to work, then why would Brendan Rodgers be any different?
That's right.
That would be my thinking.
So the advisor to Balotelli, a guy called Mino Raiola, said, and this is a strange quote, Liverpool's directors admitted in the end Jurgen Klopp did not behave correctly with Balotelli. I don't remember the Liverpool director saying that.
No.
In fact, I don't think they did.
No, I don't think they did either.
He says, I won't judge him as a manager. He doesn't strike me as a great coach, but he didn't seem to realise we're dealing with an actual person here. Yeah, you are dealing with an actual person, but a very erratic actual person,
Absolutely.
Mario behaved in exemplary fashion, did he? Never complained and trained by himself. Yeah, but he was training by himself because your manager didn't rate him.
Yeah.
Because he wasn't able to get his head together to play football.
There were a couple of incidents where in the centre circle before games and things he was causing trouble. But anyway, we've got to stop for a moment. Here's one from Paul who says, I'm a Liverpool fan and I don't think Henderson offers much either. I don't rate him.
Yeah.
And John helpfully says Singapore is the next Grand Prix.
Singapore, thank you very much indeed.
So
I thought once they got to Europe, they did the round of the European Grand Prix, and then I didn't realise they heading back out to the Far East.
They're going to end up in the Middle East, don't they? End up with the Bahrain Grand Prix. I think it's the last one.
Have they done the South American ones yet?
I don't know.
Brazil?
Not sure.
Not sure.
Maybe not.
We'll find out.
This is Talk Sport. We are the two mics. We are the two mics. We've been called up for international duty, of course, because it's a big game this afternoon at 5 o'clock, live right here on Talk Sport over in Slovakia. England take on Slovakia for the first time since they took them on and got a 0-0 draw with them in the Euros. John Cross is over there for the Mirror. Let's find out what the lie of the land is. John, a very good afternoon to you.
Very good afternoon to you both, boys. I hope you're both well.
Yeah, very well.
Thank you.
Indeed. I've just been reading about how haluski is the traditional dish of Slovakia. Potato dumplings with sheep's cheese and chopped crispy pancetta. Have you had any of that?
No, do you know what? I've had some traditional Slovakian fare in the past, which probably explains my reasoning to go Italian last night.
Oh, right, very wise, very wise.
I tell you what, it's a lovely place, actually, lovely place. We're staying in Bratislava, but we're actually sort of an hour down the road, I would say, in Taverna, which is sort of the host of the game later on this evening. Okay. And it's sort of a small stadium, but shall we say the stadium in Bratislava is sort of under construction, so it's a bit of a drag, a bit of a bind for England fans to actually get here. Right. But glorious sunshine at least. Yeah.
Now, we've read an awful lot this week about Sam Allardyce and the comedians that he brought along to cheer everybody up, and his selection, which is not that different from the England that played in the Euros. Is there a sense that there's a new beginning going on here?
I think he's trying to make it feel like that. The one thing I think is that you're right. I think the squad, and particularly the team, I mean, it's so familiar to what we saw served up at the Euros, isn't it? I think the big significant change for me is obviously John Stones in central defence. Apart from that, you'd have to say it was a typical Roy Hodgson team, wasn't it? So therefore, I think what can sort of Allardyce actually do? What can he change? I think very much his mental approach. I think the messages that he sends out. I think also trying to give the players a bit of confidence. I like the way that Allardyce speaks. I mean, listen, I would have probably gone for a foreign manager, but I think if you're going to go for English, and I think the FA made their mind up, then I think Allardyce is the best man for the job. And look, since then, I've just been really impressed with Allardyce and the way he approaches it. Last night at the press conference, spoke with a confidence which wasn't arrogance, but I think sends a clear message. I think sometimes Hodgson coaches ramble a bit, and sometimes I wondered whether sort of the players were clear on what their tactics and what their jobs would be on the pitch. And I just think Allardyce is so clear, and I think he gives those players a belief when they go out onto the pitch. And if he can translate the relative success that he's had at a club-level manager into the international circuit, then hopefully England at least can qualify without too many problems.
Yeah, I think you're right, John. Sam Allardyce doesn't talk in fairy tales, So many international managers do talk in fairy tales, and I thought Roy Hodgson was always so whimsical about things instead of, talking direct. Now, you've got to look at this, John, for me, and tell me what you think of this. The Slovaks that we saw in the last competition were on neutral territory. They're not. They're on home territory now. They're going to be more adventurous. They're going to have the crowd behind them. These are passionate people. Now, I mean, how do we cope with all that? How do we cope with the guy I'm told is one of their danger men, Robert Marek Hamsik? I mean, is all this going to come like a tidal wave at us?
Yeah, I think they will. I think that Allardyce was pointing out last night, they always start very, very fast. First 20 minutes, it's going to be, intense. Yes. It's going to be very pressurised. I think they really make the fast start and then do fade away generally. Listen, they've got a great home record. I think it's just one defeat in their last 11 at home. Right. And I do think it is going to be passionate. It's going to be loud. The one comparison I think, and that sort of kind of maybe should give a bit of England a bit of hope, is that 2 years ago, on the back of a really disappointing World Cup, listen, at the end of that, I thought Hodgson should have gone then. But I think the one thing salvation for Hodgson was that I think he probably started the Euro qualifying campaign with the hardest fixture of the qualifying campaign, and that was away to Switzerland. Exactly. Similarly, I think this time, 2 years on, no doubt in my mind that this particular fixture, being it away from home as well, obviously you've got Scotland to come, but Slovakia away from home, I think is the hardest fixture in the group of all the set of fixtures. If England can win this game, or at least avoid defeat, I know people won't like to hear that, but I do think that then they'll have taken a big positive step. I think defeat is a bit of a disaster, but I do think it allows you to go on the front foot and hopefully get a really positive result from the off.
Yeah. Well, two of the criticisms of Hodgson going into the Euros was one that he didn't really know what his best team was, and I suppose you could forgive Sam Allardyce for not realising that quite yet. But also, secondly, how fragile England were at the back, and you wonder why Slovakia were one of the few teams that actually didn't score a goal against them. I mean, we're going to need to see something different from Sam Allardyce in the sense that he's drilled the team better at least, or he's playing players in the right position.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. I like the way that he's set up the team. It's a 4-2-3-1 formation, so you've got the two, with Henderson and Dyer sitting. I'm sure you'll see them sit deep, particularly in the first 20 minutes, protecting that back four. I think there's going to be so much focus guys, on John Stones throughout this campaign. John Stones, I spoke to him, in the week at St George's Park, and I tell you what, he's used a new confidence since he's moved to Man City. I just think he's playing under a manager who's going to push him this season under Pep Guardiola. I think he's played with a renewed confidence and belief. Yes, I think we know that he likes to be a footballing centre-half, and hopefully if he can balance those risks between actually playing out from the back and finding a nice combination, then he will be, I think, the central part of England's defence and giving them a little bit more security, I think. Yeah. And I think, I think England had many good points at the Euros. Let's not forget that. But that Iceland result was an absolute disaster. Yeah. And I think that they should have beaten Slovakia, but there's no doubt about it that this game in particular is going to be much harder than the fixture that they face in the Euros because of that partisan home crowd.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Now, I just want to broaden this out a bit, John, because it's a subject close to your heart. The absence of Jack Wilshere, that's one aspect of what's happening to Jack Wilshere's life. Going down to Bournemouth to try and reinvigorate his career. I mean, is there a connection here between the two? England are missing one of their great midfield players, but he's not wanted by Arsenal anymore. He's now down in Bournemouth. I mean, it doesn't matter which way you dress it up. Jack Wilshere's taken a big fall.
Yeah, he has, Mike. And look, in many ways, I do applaud him for the stance that he's taken. Because I tell you what, it annoys me that some of the younger generation, I think, of sort of young homegrown English players are happy to sit at sort of top 4, top 6 clubs where they enjoy fantastic spoils, they enjoy great lifestyle, great contracts, but much more than that. Wonderful facilities at their amazing training grounds. It's easy to sit there and actually play, occasionally sit on the bench or just be part of the squad. Yeah. Jack Wilshere hasn't started a game this season, so he said, look, hang on a sec, I want to get my career back on track here and go and play. I don't know what it means, I think, long-term for him at Arsenal. I'm not sure now whether he's got a future there or not. I'd like to think he is, because I, for one, think he's one of English football's, absolute gems. I think he's a wonderful player. He's the sort of player for me, that why you go and watch football. Because he basically does something different. He's creative and he's strong. He's had a rotten couple of years. And I just think, English football needs characters like that. We need imagination. We need creativity. And I think he's one of those that gives us that. But credit to him for being, brutal and strong and going to Bournemouth.
What do you think of this headline this morning, John? Arsene Wenger told Jack Wilshere he's playing for his Arsenal future and told him to grow up. I mean, that doesn't sound like a great relationship.
No, I would worry about that.
Not really, no.
No. Look, I've got to be honest. I'd be more worried if I were him, really, and thinking that I think Jack Wilshere is a great talent. So if your manager is prepared to loan you out for a year, we give him to believe with no callback clause, then I'd be much more worried about what that says is Arsenal's future more than anything else that Arsene Wenger could say publicly. Sure. I think Wilshere is, he's strong, he's sort of courageous, and I think if anyone can prove Wenger wrong, then it's him. But I do fear that I think probably Wilshere's future might lie elsewhere. As someone who watches a lot of Arsenal, I think that's a great shame, to be honest.
And just on another subject, I know we're supposed to be talking England, but the game's coming up very, very soon. What about Tony Pulis? Mike was asking me earlier whether I think he's going to be around. There are those who say he's not maybe going to be around much after the international break, and he's not getting on very well at West Brom.
Well, he's got history here, hasn't he? He did leave Crystal Palace just before the start of the season. And when things don't pan out his way, as they certainly haven't, make no mistake about that in the transfer window, and he hasn't got the players that he wanted. I mean, I found it bizarre that the new West Brom chief, John Williams, a guy very well respected throughout the game, made a public statement kind of making it pretty clear, I think, that they basically got 5 players in. One of them that they tried to get in wasn't to Pulis's liking, perhaps, for didn't sign him for footballing reasons. And I think there's obviously a little bit of a clash there. Tony Pulis is a very strong-willed man. The only thing I would say is, though, obviously he had some, legal issues with Crystal Palace, and I think it was reported at the time that cost him a lot of money. Can you really walk out on a club, either for financial reasons or for a point of principle? I think Pulis, great manager, had a terrific record in the Premier League, and I think sort of West Brom fans will miss him when he's gone because he is so consistent. But I do think underlying it all, I would share those concerns that basically they're hinting that he might walk away.
Sure. But you'd always expect if he does walk away and, suddenly we get down towards Christmas and the manager goes from a club which is maybe, sort of flirting with relegation, they'll hire him. Somebody else will hire him, won't they?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, listen, look at the job he did at Stoke.
Exactly.
I know he's not everyone's cup of tea. And, and look at the job he did at Crystal Palace.
Yeah.
He is a phenomenal football manager. If you hire a football manager as a Premier League club that is sort of kind of in the lower end, if you get in Tony Pulis, he will offer you consistency and really sustainable Premier League football. And yes, sometimes his football might not be, aesthetically pleasing, call it what you like, but I'm a big fan of Pulis. I think Pulis sometimes gets an unfair rap, and I think if you look at sort of the consistent, sort of colourful characters in the Premier League managerial era, I should say, I think Pulis is one of those, and I think he deserves a bit more credit than sometimes he gets.
No, I totally agree. So, John, sum it up for us today, please. How do you expect this game to go, and what are the consequences of whatever result we get?
Well, I think it will end up being a draw. I'd love to think it'd be a win, but I do think that if you look at the way that he set up that team, I think it's a little bit safety first with a bit of flair, and I think it might end up a draw. I think it wouldn't be the worst start to Allardyce's reign, but overall, guys, I do think he'll reach that World Cup finals, and it's the tournament where Allardyce is going to earn his corn, basically. Yeah. I think the qualifying campaign, look at it, is straightforward. Whatever result today, I don't see England losing, but I do think it'll be a positive result. I think they'll reach the finals, but it's in Russia in 2 years' time when it really be tested.
Sure.
Great stuff. John, thank you very much.
Thanks very much indeed.
John Cross there reporting into us from Slovakia, where apparently the main Bratislava Stadium is under construction, so they're going down the road for what would be quite a small place.
It's 18,000 capacity, and it's in a place I can't pronounce.
Yeah, it sounds like it should say something like Trnava.
Yeah, that's right, something like Torino or something.
Like that, yeah. But we'll be talking more about that. Of course, coming up in the next hour, we'll also be talking about Mark Halsey and the refereeing scenario that's been going on. Did referees get told not to say something or leave something out of their report? We'll find out from a former Premier League referee coming up later on TalkSport. This is TalkSport. We are the two mics coming up at 5 o'clock. Of course, it is Slovakia against England live here on TalkSport. We'll be watching it as well here. Myself and Mr. Parry, although in separate places. He's off for a family get-together. I'll just be concentrating on my own, so there's no distractions around me. Now,
there's going to be a problem for people who have partners, and I'm talking about female partners.
Yes.
If they want to watch one of the other games tonight. Right. Scotland kicks off 7:45. So does Republic of Ireland, I think.
Yeah, I think it does.
And the problem with that is that means that the second half will just about get underway as Poldark starts.
Well,
okay?
I mean, there's Poldark and Victoria at the same time, isn't there?
Is it?
Well?
Is that right?
I think so.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there's two shows there which have. Victoria's already had terrific reviews, and of course, Poldark is the biggest female heartthrob in the history of television.
Yes.
To all intents and purposes.
Indeed.
So
It's Northern Ireland actually tonight against the Czech Republic.
Sorry, that's right. Yeah. So I'd like to hear from any of our listeners who are going to find themselves in a viewing battle tonight. Now, what I would say is this:
you'd have to say most family homes now have more than one TV. Don't
well, yes, okay, you could say that, but on the other hand, you like to sit down and watch TV as a family. Now, what I would say is this. We've already made reference to the fact that I don't think you can watch football in retrospective vision.
No.
Because you know
the results.
You
can watch highlights,
You can watch highlights on Match of the Day and that kind of stuff. But what I'm saying is, because the game's live, watch the game, you can always then record the Poldark show and watch it at the end of the game. Yeah. What's wrong with that? What is wrong with that?
I mean, Poldark to me is a complete and utter waste of time.
Yes.
I mean, I tried watching it last season. And, I mean, it's basically just about this guy taking his shirt off and wandering about. We talked to Kevin O'Sullivan, the TV critic, last week about it.
Yeah.
And he said, there's going to be a bit of topless mining involved. Yeah. And everything he does basically is topless. And he was on the front page of the Mail on Sunday, wasn't he?
Who?
The guy with his shirt off that I saw. And because that's the only thing women watch it for.
That's right.
He takes his shirt off and it looks great.
Yeah, that's right. But I've read some of the background to what was happening in Cornwall in those days, and any nobleman who took his shirt off would have been banished from society.
Yeah,
you know
probably,
what I mean?
Yeah.
You didn't take your shirt off in those days.
Not historically accurate.
Well,
I'm shocked.
I mean, historical accuracy compared to millions and millions and millions of swooning female viewers is not a consideration. Is it?
Notwithstanding what Les McKeown was saying earlier on, that it's going to be 5-0 to Scotland. I must say, I'm not sure I'm going to be watching Malta against Scotland.
No, exactly.
Even though, technically speaking, I would be supporting Scotland, of course, because of my heritage as a Scotsman.
Malta has a place in my heart as a football nation.
Why?
Because in 1970... Joe Royle and Colin Harvey, two terrific
very well.
Everton players from the 70s, who are still with us, thank God, and thriving and all that, both made their debut for England away in Malta. Yeah. We won 1-0.
Well, Malta are as bad as they are now.
Yes, they were.
in the world. Although Gordon Strachan says they're not as bad as they sound.
Not as bad as they sound, but it was a European group game.
Yeah.
We won 1-0. Colin Harvey, it was his only ever England cap, which was a disgrace because he was a brilliant footballer.
He was a great left half, wasn't he?
Oh, he was just brilliant.
Yeah.
And sadly,
very
his
calm
career,
and cool, I seem to remember.
His career was ended by a series of injuries, actually. He had an eye injury and he had difficult ankle problems, I think, or something like that. But the point of my story is it was the only game he ever played. And Joe Royle, of course, went on to have an outstanding international career, as ever. But the real issue was that the Everton team who won in the 70s had the Holy Trinity of Harvey, Kendall and Ball.
Yes.
Now, Alan Ball, we all know, sadly no longer with us, my footballing hero of all
World
time.
Cup winner.
Youngest World Cup winner, right. So he won his 70-odd caps. Colin Harvey won one, and Howard Kendall never got one, which was amazing.
That's incredible.
It is incredible, considering they were the stalwart of the 1970 First Division Championship.
Who was it that was keeping him out of the team then? There must have been a better player,
well, in
perhaps.
1970, I suppose Alan Mullery.
Yeah, another great player.
Yeah, the midfield players, Alan Mullery. I'm trying to think now. I'm trying to think of the 1970 team in
Mexico.
Bobby
Moore was still playing, wasn't he?
Yeah, but he was defender. The midfield players.
Yeah, but he was a kind of roving defender.
Alan Ball, of course.
Yeah.
Alan Mullery.
Yeah.
Bobby Charlton had been converted into midfield player in 1970.
He can't get into that team, really.
Yeah, Martin Peters. Yeah. Right? Yeah. You know, I mean, these were outstanding players, World Cup winners and this kind of stuff, and he couldn't replace them.
Wasn't Joe Royle the guy involved in that rather unseemly scene when you were trying to pretend you didn't have such a terrible car?
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Where was that?
That was at Leeds.
Yeah.
That was the semi-final.
Why didn't you tell us about that?
Well, I mean, I'm not sure it's such an interesting story. But
I think it is.
In 1995, when I was Director of Communications for the
FA,
Football Association.
Working closely with Terry Venables.
The semi-final...
Why did you have such a terrible car then?
Well, I'm just about to tell you. The semi-final between Everton and Spurs was played at Ellen Road.
Yes.
And I would still love the semi-finals to be played at regional venues.
Instead of Wembley. I think it'd be much better.
But I understand the reasons why, because of the contractual situation. They need to raise the money and all that kind of stuff. So we all toddle off up the M1 to Leeds. Now, the thing was that I had then taken a break from Fleet Street.
A break?
Yes,
right.
break from Fleet Street.
Well, not an enforced absence.
Well, you could call it gardening leave or something like that, or as actors sometimes call it, resting. And then I'd been rung up by David Davis, who was sort of overall kind of media chief at the FA. And said,
so what, you were not the media chief? I thought you said
I was Director of Communications.
So but he was above you, though?
Well, Dave was on the board, so he didn't get involved in the day-to-day stuff,
Yeah.
And he said to me, I said, look, I notice you've just moved on. I said, yeah, that's right. He said, look, I'm going to the FA. He said, and there's nobody else there. There is no other stuff. Do you want to come along and give me a hand for a couple of weeks or something? I said, yeah, sure. I said, yeah. There was so many great things happening. Merson and the Wright Island and Terry Venables.
There was the time you started unearthing all these stories and telling Fleet Street all about them.
Well, that's right. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So
they'd never been in the papers as much in their lives.
No, that's right. Yeah. So anyway, what happened was, for the first time in about 20 years, I didn't have a car because in those days, if you were like a top exec in a newspaper, you always got a car. And I'd had sort of Rovers, Mercedes, whatever, and all these kind of cars.
Sierras.
Well, I had 4 Sierras when I was a reporter, but as you go up the old food chain, get better car. I had a fantastic big Rover, which was like the car of the day.
Really? Not one of those horrible big square things.
No, well, sort of. It had a sloping back and all that kind of stuff, But anyway, there you go.
Yeah.
So I found myself suddenly without wheels, and I thought, I don't really know what to do, because I hadn't bought a car for 20 years or something. So anyway, I thought this is only a temporary measure before I'm discovered again, as a great Fleet Street talent.
Of course.
So I decided 2 things. I thought, right, I'm going to buy a car. It's got to be a new car for my credibility, but it's not going to be an expensive car because I might have to sell it within 6 months.
Only you think that your car gives you credibility?
No, hang on.
Well, just rent one for the day.
No, hang on. I thought... But I'm not going to... Within 6 months, I'll probably have to flog it because, some newspaper in Fleet Street will take me on again in a very senior position, give me a nice big car again. Yeah. So I thought I'll just buy a small car, relatively
So what did you buy?
So I bought a Mini Metro, which is probably the smallest car in the world. Okay?
And also the worst car in the world.
Yeah, probably the worst car in the world.
I've seen bigger hair dryers.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And it cost me £7,000 cash.
Brand new.
For brand new, right. yeah. And
Did it have all the knobs and knockers on it?
Well, not
Bluetooth.
really. And the thing was, the first realised...
Go faster stripes.
First realised I made a bit of a mistake here when I parked it in the car park of the place I was living in those days, which was down near Wapping. Right. And all the other cars in the block, because it was a very expensive block I lived in. I'd bought a flat there at the start of the boom in Docklands, and... all the other cars were twice the size of this one. Yeah. And I thought, this is a bit odd.
And about 8 times more expensive.
Yeah, but anyway, on the day of the Spurs game...
Up at Leeds,
day before, actually, because the game was on Sunday. We went up on Saturday. And I went with Claire Tomlinson, who worked with me at the FA, who's now a very successful Sky TV presenter.
Have you seen the time, by the way?
Yeah, don't worry about that. Cause I
you have to get on with it.
And we drove up the M1. But, it was painfully slow, because this car didn't do more than about 80 miles an hour or something, you know what I mean? But anyway, on the following day, in the Leeds United official car park, Everton won, of course, massive celebrations afterwards. And when we came out, there were only 2 cars left in the car park. Everyone else had gone home. Right. One of them was a massive Mercedes, right? And parked right next to it was my Mini Metro, which looked like a sandwich box by comparison. Right. So anyway, as we came out, I left with Joe Roy, the Everton manager, and I realised we were drifting towards the same 2 cars. Yes. You see what I mean? Yeah. And I thought, this is dreadful. Right. Because Joe
he was going to get in a big boat.
Joe Roy was car. So, and Claire was behind me, and so I said, anyway, Joe, it's good to see you. And I started wheeling away. Right. And Claire was trying to say, where are you going? And I said, come on, Claire, come on, down this way. And she said, but I said, no, but nothing. Come on, we've got business to do. Come on, don't, hurry up. Because I wasn't going to get into this car in front of Joe Royal under any circumstances. So anyway, Joe sort of looked at me a bit funny, and all that. And then he got in his car. And then...
Where did you go?
I walked towards the exit for the car park, you see. And Claire said, what are you doing? I said, I'm not getting in that car in front of Joe Royal. No. He'll think I'm a complete idiot and a failure in life, and I can't have that in front of the Everton manager, He
shouldn't think that.
And as we were walking to the edge of the car park, Joe drove past. He had somebody with him as well. Yeah. And said, can we give you a lift anywhere? I said, no. No, don't worry. My car's...
terrible trouble you get yourself into.
Yeah, I said, my car's round the corner. Yeah. It's okay, don't worry about it, Yeah. And again, Joe looked at me...
It's a very big car.
Yeah, like I was... And then he drove off. And so when I made sure his car actually disappeared down the road and gone round a roundabout, we then turned back...
We'll have to get him on the show, and have him talk him through that particular episode.
Well, he didn't...
He must have realised it was your car.
I'm not sure he even knows that it was, you see.
I bet he might... Because who else's car would have been there if you were the last 2 people out of the building?
I don't know. But I had an Everton sticker in the back as well, so, which I shouldn't have done because I was supposed to be neutral at the FA.
Yeah. Did you have a special number plate on it?
No way, no. I can't even remember what the number plate was.
Well, you don't need to. No, it's very funny, though.
Yeah, well.
Very funny. Porky Parry thinks that his credibility is very, very much at issue, depending on what sort of car he drives, of course. I don't worry about these things. Mine is an old jalopy, and it's sitting outside. This is Talk Sport. We are the Too Much. Good afternoon, I'm Mike Graham, he's Mike Parry. You're listening to the Two Mikes on TalkSport. We've been called up for international duty, of course, as has Sam Allardyce. He's the new manager of England. He's going to have his first game this afternoon at 5 o'clock, live right here on TalkSport. We'll be talking some more about that coming up in this hour, though. We're going to have the Porky sermon. We're also going to be, of course, talking about this latest refereeing hoo-ha. We're going to be getting on a former Premier League referee, Keith Cooper. 08717 223344 is the number to call. You're listening to the Two Mikes with me, Mike Graham, and Mike Parry on TalkSport. Now, Mr. Parry, that was a fascinating story you told about your horrible little car. How long did you keep it for in the end, by the way?
About a year.
Really?
Because I then did get back into journalism, and funnily enough, and the next job I got a Mercedes.
Very nice.
A white one.
A white
it's the
one?
only time I've ever had a white car.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a couple of white cars.
It was the only one available when I wanted the car.
Right.
Otherwise, I'd have to wait 2 or 3 weeks.
What
for
sort
a
of
specific
Mercedes
colour.
was it?
It was a C180.
Oh,
so
very
it wasn't
nice.
a big Mercedes.
No, it's quite nice, though.
It was not very nice. It was a new model, they just redesigned it again, so it was great. And suited me down to the ground.
Excellent. Now, we'll talk some more about some of the other cars you've had over time, of course.
Yep.
But right now, because it is Sunday and some people are looking for a bit of spiritual guidance, it's time for the Porky Sermon.
Okay.
Now, this, of course, is where I will read a passage from the good book, as it's sometimes known.
Yes.
And you will then interpret it for us.
Okay.
I've got quite a long passage here from Daniel 6, verses 16 to 24.
Oh, I know it well.
I'm going to curtail it slightly.
Yeah. Okay,
because otherwise it will go on forever.
No. That's, make it brief and to the point, please.
I'll make it brief and to the point.
Yeah.
Here it's Daniel in the lion's den, which you might think is quite appropriate.
Right.
So, the king gave the order, and they brought Daniel and threw him into the lion's den. The king said to Daniel, "May your God, whom you serve continually, rescue you." A stone was brought and placed over the mouth of the den, and the king sealed it with his own signet ring and with the rings of his nobles, so that Daniel's situation might not be changed. Then the king returned to his palace and spent the night without eating and without any entertainment being brought to him, and he could not sleep. At the first light of dawn, the king got up and hurried to the lion's den. When he came near the den, he called to Daniel in an anguished voice, "Daniel, servant of the living God, has your God, whom you serve continually, been able to rescue you from the lions?" And of course Daniel answered, "May the king live forever. My God sent his angel, and he shut the mouths of the lions. They have not hurt me, because I was found innocent in his sight, nor have I ever done any wrong before you, your majesty."
Okay.
So what do you make of that?
Okay, well, I'll tell you what I make of that. No, just give me that there. I'll tell you what this is. This is a message, right, to the England players today to have absolute faith in Sam Allardyce, okay? You've got to have absolute faith.
Is he the king, then?
Well, sort of. He's sort of the king. I mean, look, they're going into the lion's den. That's an obvious simile, an obvious comparison.
Could be Millwall.
Yeah, it could be Millwall, but it's not. I pass Millwall's ground every morning when I come to work. It has all the architectural merit of a prison, to be honest.
That's a bit harsh.
It is a bit harsh, I'm afraid, but it is a very traditional football ground.
It is,
even though it's called the New Den. Anyway, so what they're saying here is they're saying that the players have to have absolute faith in Sam Allardyce. They have to have absolute faith in the tactics and the methods he's going to employ today in order for us to beat Slovakia. By the way, isn't it difficult being in a group with Slovakia and Slovenia? Somebody's going to get that mixed up one of these days.
Why?
You know that, don't you?
Why?
Well, they sound so similar.
Slovenia is part of the former Yugoslavia, as we discussed earlier.
I know, yeah.
Slovakia is part of Czechoslovakia.
Yeah, I know, but nevertheless, they're two very similar sounding countries.
SL.
O.
SLO.
Yeah, I think so, yeah. Anyway, now this about the stone being brought and placed over the mouth of the den, okay? That means there is no escape. There is no escape from the responsibility that the England players have to take upon their shoulders today. And I think that's largely aimed at John Stones.
Yes.
This is a...
and funnily enough, there's a reference to stones,
there is.
Stones were placed over the hole.
Exactly what I'm saying. Den. A stone was brought and placed over the mouth of the den. Now, this indicates to me almost a celestial indication that John Stones, because he is Stones, and this is
for
a stone...
Yeah,
for it is he, is going to be the main linchpin of us not conceding any goals today, okay? The king sealed it with his own signet ring and with the rings of his nobles. Now, what that means is that whilst John Stones was not given the confidence of the former manager, this manager, the new manager, Sam Allardyce, has anointed John Stones as his chosen defender, okay?
Yeah.
And all this about the signet ring and the rings of his nobles, that means that when Sam Allardyce says he's number one, then everybody else in the camp, Sammy Lee and the rest had better believe it, okay?
Because they haven't made many changes, but he's been the most significant one, I suppose, isn't he?
Absolutely. So the Daniel situation might not be changed. Then the king returned to his palace and spent the night without eating and without any entertainment being brought on. Now, what this means that when you make big decisions, then you have to carry the responsibility for them, and carrying that responsibility is a burden we all face in life, but more particularly from the public eye, because you've got to remember that this could have gone hopelessly wrong.
Yes.
Well,
Daniel could have got eaten by the lions.
Well, exactly. The king made a terrible mistake and misplaced his faith in God, and returned to find Daniel was just a bag of bones, or not even a bag of bones, just a collection of bones on the floor.
Bones,
and the lion had a rather gluttonous type of meal. So this is the worrying period that Sam Allardyce will go through today, the 90 minutes of it today. to try and find out if he can get it. Right, now, obviously, Sam Allardyce won't be sleeping during the game today under any circumstances.
Well, let's hope not.
Or anything like that, but it means that he can't concentrate on anything except the eventual outcome. Now, at first light of dawn, that, of course, means the 90-minute mark in football terms, OK? The King got up and hurried to the Lion's Den. That means that Sam Allardyce literally will be on edge all the way through to the end of the game. When he came near to the den, he called to Daniel in an anguished voice, "Daniel, servant of the living God, how's your God, whom you serve continually, been able to rescue you from the lions?" And a pitiful voice answered, "May the King live forever. My God sent his angel, and he shut the mouths of the lions."
I didn't think it was particularly pitiful.
I
thought Daniel sounded like he was kind of well up for it.
Yeah, well up for it, but I mean, what I'm saying is pitiful in the sense that he had to spend the night in this, this godforsaken hellhole.
Right.
That's they have not hurt me because I was found innocent in his sight, nor have I ever done any wrong before your Majesty. Now, what that means is that John Stones has pledged not to let his country down today, not to let his manager down, not to let millions of supporters down,
not to dribble the ball out of the penalty area.
Not to dribble the ball out of the area, okay?
Right.
And it goes on to say the King was overjoyed and gave orders to lift Daniel out of the den. So what that means is that John Stones could emerge from this game really as a new star within the England setup, okay? And when Daniel was lifted from the den, no wound was found on him because he had trusted in his God. John Stones has got to have the self-belief that Sam Allardyce has showed in him, okay? So this actually, considering it's a random passage from the good book, as you quite rightly said, is incredibly significant to what's going to happen today over in Slovakia, and I would say adds further grist to the mill of my prediction that England will win 2-1, and I think you've predicted...
I predict 3-1.
3-1.
Yes.
I think it'll be something along those lines.
I want to see goals.
We want to see goals, and we want to see England do it, but most of all, we want to see them tighten up at the back. And conceding one goal isn't a problem away from home in this sort of competition. It'd be better if we didn't concede any, but I think we probably will concede the one. That, I would like to put to you is the strict interpretation of Daniel, verse 6, chapters 16 to 24.
Thank you very much indeed.
Chapter 6, verses 16 to 24. Okay?
Fabulous stuff.
You got it?
That was, of course, the Porky sermon. I'm sure you're suitably uplifted by that.
I certainly am, yeah. Is this all a recording, or is some human being contributing to this?
Keith Cooper. Shall we give him a chance for the big finish?
Indeed.
Go on, Keith. That is absolutely brilliant, Keith. Fantastic.
It was pretty impressive.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for doing that for us. Keith Cooper, of course.
Anything for you boys.
Former Premier League referee, which we'll get to in a minute, because we'll talk about that.
You're not really allowed to sing that competently on this show, Keith, because I have the reputation for being the man who sings songs on this show.
In the beginning, I used to hear you singing, mate. You were all right.
I know. Were you ever a member of a Welsh male voice choir?
No, nothing.
No, because it was very impressive.
I used to sing it. I used to sing it when I came out of Leeds United. Tony Leaker was the linesman.
Yeah.
They drew 0-0 with Spurs, and they asked me to sing the supporters, and he said he'd sing a bit of opera for you. So every time I went to Leeds, I used to sing opera for him as I come out of the dressing room.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah,
it was brilliant.
Fantastic. We'll never take a Welshman on at singing in any
Exactly,
contest
I
of any
totally
kind.
agree.
Now, just before we get to Mark Halsey and the refereeing scenario that we've been talking about this weekend, let's talk a bit about Wales-Moldova, because, of course, England taking on Slovakia tonight, Wales tomorrow night. Are they a different team now after their success at the Euros?
No, I just think there's a togetherness. Chris has got them playing well. The most important thing is the camaraderie. And I think the other thing that people are missing, we've got a lot of Premier League players now.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of players. In the past, we didn't have that.
and we got two gems, obviously, in Aaron Ramsey and Bale. Obviously, Aaron can't play tomorrow night, and he'll be a big miss. But you have to say the togetherness, not only from the players, but the togetherness between the players and the supporters as well. And, you know what players are like. If you can get it from the terrace, it G's them on and whatever.
Indeed.
Chris has done a fantastic job in his staff. It's been fantastic. We've had a great time.
Yeah.
And I got to say, it's really lifted the country.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
gone from solely a rugby nation to... I have to say, 50-50 now.
Yeah, that's right, and third or fourth best team in Europe. OK, now then, Keith, you've got to move on. The Mark Halsey situation, you must have read it thoroughly. You must understand what it's all about. Mark Halsey telling people that, pressure's been put upon me in the past to say I didn't see incidents that happened. What's your interpretation of all of this?
Well, I think, if it's happened, there's a way out of this. All he's got to do is name names.
Well, apparently he has. I'm reading a report. Well, I know what you mean about name names, but I'm reading a report which actually...
You've always been straight down the line.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah, but I mean, it actually, what it says here is it's pointed out the exact incident. The former Premier League official was told to say he did not see a clash involving Stephen Nzonzi against Stoke in Stoke in 2011, despite wanting to stand by his original decision. Now, has that ever happened to you, Keith?
No, never. Ever. Never happened to me at all. Went to a personal hearing in UEFA and all that when I sent a couple off.
Yeah.
But that didn't change my decision. I think there's a furore about this. I think Mark, having come out with this statement, has to name names.
He does. He has to back it up.
Well, because he's also said we've been told to give a certain amount of corners or throw-ins or fouls or bookings, etc.
What's that about?
And he talks about bias towards certain clubs from the FA's point of view. I mean, you say you've never been asked to do anything specific, but I mean, when...
I've had wonderful wars with Alex Ferguson.
Right.
Wonderful wars in the tunnel.
Right.
Fantastic, where we, lambasted each other. But he didn't get it. All right, perhaps he expected it. I don't know, but he never got it.
Right, but what I'm saying, Keith, is when
referees, because I'm not in their shoes, am I?
But what I'm saying is when you were compiling, say, a match report after the game, after the fact, I mean, is there any sort of conversation that takes place between the referee and the PGMOL, the Professional Game Match Officials Limited? I mean, did they ever interfere with what your report has got in it?
No, certainly not. Certainly not. It was concise. It was to the point. This is why the player was cautioned. This is why the player was sent off. And I've never had it returned ever to me. What do you think about? Or prior to my report, Keith, you might want to think about so. Never, ever happened.
No.
And I know perhaps it's not what you want to hear, gentlemen, but if Mark is saying this, just name names.
Yeah, I totally agree. Now, that brings us to the organisation involved, the PGMOL, Professional Game Match Officials Limited. I mean, are these guys now, Keith, are they getting too powerful? Is it too powerful a body? Is it having an undue influence on the interests of football?
Perhaps Mark is not saying the truth.
Well, I've never accused a man of being a liar.
He's a controversial figure, isn't he?
These people who are running the game for referees are liars.
Yeah.
Is that what we saying? Are we saying they're cheats?
Well, he is.
I didn't get that with Ken Ridden and his lot.
Yeah.
I didn't get that.
I mean, he goes on to name another incident. You remember the very famous incident with Wayne Rooney swearing at a TV camera? Nothing happened at the time, but he was subsequently charged with outrageous behaviour. Now, he says that he has evidence that pressure was put on that referee to, it wasn't him, it was a guy called Lee Mason.
What, to say that he hadn't seen it?
Say he hadn't seen it,
right.
Yeah. Well, almost everybody in the world had seen it because it was at a TV
Are you
camera.
about the Graham Paul incident where Rooney swore, I think Wayne Rooney swore so many times?
He swore 18 times. I spoke to Graham about it and he swore 18 times and Graham said, the reason I didn't book him or send him off, he wasn't swearing at me. He was swearing at himself.
Yeah, okay.
But he didn't say he didn't see it.
I wouldn't disagree. If he's not swearing at him, I suppose that's fair enough. The law says foul or abusive, but I would go along with that. But again, I come back to it. If Mark is saying all this, if he's stirring up a hornet's nest, you've got to be big enough and brave enough to say, well, this person told me to say this.
Yes,
exactly right. Now, obviously, this has all been kicked up, Keith, because of the Sergio Aguero incident the other week.
Sure.
Andre Mariner said that he didn't see it. Is that conceivable that he didn't see it?
Well, this is what he's saying. You have to believe the gentleman, don't you?
He's only a few feet away.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's only a few... Oh, okay. All right. That can happen. That can happen. All right. He say he didn't see the fella swing the arm. Okay. You have to believe the fella. You have to believe the chap. What we're going to say now is, because you're in the closest end, you must have seen it.
Well, no, I agree with you. I mean, a referee...
I'm sorry, Michael, that's what you're inferring.
No. A referee is subject to hundreds of distractions during a game, isn't he? And he could be 3 or 4 feet away, but if somebody has drawn his attention to something behind him, his head might have been turned or anything, you know?
Or if he's getting something from his earpiece from his linesman.
Yeah, or if he's reaching into his pocket to get a card out or something.
I'm not defending Andrew Matt. He can stand up for himself. But at the end of the day, I'm saying it could happen that he didn't see it. And I prefer to believe the referee.
Right, absolutely right. Okay. Finally, just back to Wales, Keith. I'm assuming you're expecting Wales to reach the finals in Russia in 2018. Expecting a win against Moldova tomorrow?
Yeah, 2-0 I fancy, yes. 2-0. I won't say that. 2 clear goals.
2 clear goals. And Keith, are you surprised that Chris Coleman's still your manager? And I don't mean that with any disrespect at all.
I know what you're saying, I know what you're saying. Somebody's going to come knocking the door. Somebody's going to lose their manager. It won't be evident, but they look at it flying, aren't they?
No, exactly, yeah.
When you look at it, somebody will come knocking the door. It's bound to happen, isn't it?
Oh, you'd think so. That's the world of football. I mean, talent like that is in short supply, and people go chasing it.
Absolutely right.
He's a good fella. He was a good player. He was a nice chap. You know, he got on with the game. He took it. He gave it. And he was always reasonable with he was always reasonable with me anyway.
Yeah. Okay.
Fantastic. Good. Keith, have a lovely weekend.
Enjoy Keith. Thanks very much.
Enjoy the game tomorrow night, and we'll speak to you.
Bye.
Yeah. Speak to you again soon. Keith Cooper there, former Premier League referee, very straight to the point.
Yes, absolutely.
Says
name names.
Why wouldn't Mark Halsey name names? Saying that if a referee like Mariner said he didn't see the Sergio Aguero incident, why would you disbelieve him? Difficult one, this, because you don't quite know what Halsey's kind of motivation for all of this is. Really,
do you know what backs Mark Halsey up? That, and this has been drawn to my attention by 2 or 3 different people. Yeah. It's actually all in his book that he published 3 years ago. Right. And nobody took any notice at the time, but he talked about the incident then, and now it's just been sort of highlighted, as you quite rightly say, by the Aguero situation.
It's going to be an interesting year for referees, I think, this one. But more of that to come. We're coming up next with heroes and villains. Loads more. This is TalkSport. This is TalkSport. We are the Two Mics. There will be a podcast coming out a little bit later on, of course. We've got a fascinating conversation coming up with a mosquito expert, funnily enough, because you're a bit concerned about the rise in mosquito infestation.
I'm told by experts, because I read all my journals all the time, that we have got an invasion of mosquitoes. Not only an invasion, but the places they like at football grounds.
They're going to come to football grounds
because there's so much open space there. There's so much grass.
Yeah. And so many people.
And pitches are constantly watered. Yeah. So in a very, very dry summer, where does the mosquito go? Goes where there's water, and that happens to be football pitches.
Well, we'll find out a bit more about that. But first, though, it's time for this. Heroes and villains. This is our little Sunday competition that we have. This is not judged by the great public, of course. It's judged by our producer. So John will be having to listen to yours and mine to decide which one is better. You've got 2 heroes and 2 villains.
Yes.
Would you like to go first?
I'll go first.
All right. What would you like to go first with?
With a villain.
Okay.
And this villain's already been mentioned in the show, but I've got to nominate him because the behaviour is so appalling. Mario Balotelli.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Mario Balotelli, to go around winding up his agent and telling him to describe Jurgen Klopp as a piece of filth
I don't know why that makes me laugh.
Well, no, but I totally agree. I mean, that is just not on. I'm sorry. I mean, he had enough chances to establish himself as a top Premier League player with Manchester City and Liverpool, 2 of our top clubs, 2 of our leading clubs. He went out on loan to other clubs on Europe, AC Milan and that sort of thing.
Yes.
He's had more chances than anybody, and he should have reprimanded his own agent and said, no, Mr. Klopp is not a piece of filth. Mr. Klopp actually gave me the same opportunity as everybody else, but I blew it. And he blew it because he's a villain. His head simply is not in the right place to cope with Premier League football.
You wonder if he likes being a villain as well. And actually, we had a corrective tweet earlier on, which I'm not sure is entirely corrective in the sense that they said, it wasn't Brendan Rodgers that signed Mario Balotelli, it was the transfer committee. But of course, that was what Rodgers said after he left Liverpool.
Exactly.
But everybody, to all intents and purposes, believed that it was him. Yeah. Very good. Well, my first villain is somebody we've also talked about on the show, and it's Mark Halsey.
Mark Halsey,
making out that he was told to lie, because as we just heard Keith Cooper saying there, he hasn't given any real evidence as to who said it. He had name names, is what Keith Cooper said.
Keith is absolutely right. You've got to say who was the person, because this is a corruption issue, as Gary Neville has pointed out in a couple of tweets. Gary Neville's got involved in it. Gary Neville is a very worthy spokesperson for the game of football, which he served so brilliantly. Yeah. And if he says...
That's not what the Valencia fans say.
That's right. I totally agree. As a player I'm talking about. Yeah. And if he says, look, we've got to get to the bottom of this, Mark Halsey can simply name the person who said it, because is that person still there?
So you agree he's a good villain then?
He is a good villain,
Okay, well, let's have one of your first heroes then.
Right, one of my first heroes has got to be Nicky Rosberg.
Okay.
He won the race this afternoon. He had established a lead at the start of the season, but Lewis Hamilton, generally acknowledged as the most brilliant driver in the sport, has battered him senseless over the last 6 Grand Prix and come back. And today, the reason I'm nominating him as a hero is not just because he won the race, but once again, Lewis Hamilton had battered him in practice and got onto pole. Yeah. And somehow Nicky Rosberg came out of the shadows and whipped round Lewis Hamilton, not only to take the lead at the first corner, but to take the race. That's really heroic stuff.
Okay. Well, my first hero actually is one I doubt that you're going to agree with. I'm going to say Jack Wilshere. Because Jack Wilshere has had a very, very troubled time at Arsenal, you might say. A lot of the fans at Arsenal still love him. They see him as their boy. They see him as their guy. They want to have him back. But I think it's taken quite a brave step for someone like him, who's previously been vilified by the press for some of his off-the-field habits. Some of the smoking and stuff that he does, and the drinking and the clubbing and all of that. But for him to actually go to a place like Bournemouth, and as you said earlier, which is quite a step down for him, because he wants to play football and because he wants to be guaranteed a game every week if he's fit enough, I think that takes quite a few cojones, and I'm going to take my hat off to him.
Okay, well, I'm going to name my next villain now.
Okay.
Jack Wilshere.
Jack Wilshere.
Sorry, in my view, he is a villain, not a hero.
Oh, I think he's on the way to being a hero now.
No, I think he had so many opportunities at Arsenal, and... It's all very well people saying he's been lucky with injuries and all that kind of stuff, but I'm sorry, I have to raise this issue, and people will always have a go at me and say, what's it got to do with it? Jack Wilshere's lifestyle was questionable for a professional footballer, and it's no good saying it wasn't. He's spotted on more than one occasion smoking a cigarette. Yeah. Do you think that's the only time he smoked a cigarette when there happened to be a camera around? Right. No. He was involved in an unsavoury incident outside a West End London nightclub in the early hours of the morning when he should have been recuperating from injury.
And none of that can help his recuperation.
None of it can help it at all. And we know that, he has had less than... what's the word I'm looking for? Ruthless discipline in the way he leads his life. Put it that way. Right. That's why I nominate him as a villain.
Okay, well, I'm not quite sure what the leanings of our producer are.
Well, we'll have to find out.
In terms of Arsenal. Yeah. But that may be a telling factor.
Yes.
And you've probably been doing some secret research about that.
No.
Now, my second villain is got to be, I'm afraid, it's got to be Keith Vaz, MP. Okay. Former chair of the Home Affairs Select Committee.
Without a shadow of a doubt.
Who has resigned, although I'm told temporarily resigned, while he seeks guidance from his lawyers and members of his family. But he's been said by Naz Shah, who's a member of the Select Committee, to have done the right thing. This is after allegations surfaced in the Sunday Mirror that he was involved in some nefarious activity, which I won't repeat here.
No, of course not.
Suffice it to say that it is entirely, shall we say, not in keeping with his role as a very highly paid and very well-respected MP.
A leading parliamentarian.
Former member of the government, etc., former minister.
Yes.
And so if the allegations turn out to be true, and certainly there's no suggestion from him at the moment that they're not, then I'm afraid he is going to be not only the villain of the week, but it could be the villain of the year.
Yeah, indeed.
Up to you for the final...
for my final hero. And my final hero is, believe it or not, Raheem Sterling.
Really?
Now, this is a boy
who... There's a lot of turnarounds going on here.
Yeah. He's a boy I lambasted all last season, said he wasn't worth 48 million quid that Manchester City paid for him, that he wouldn't score 5 goals. He, in fact, scored 6, but 3 of those were in one game, so he only scored in 4 games. And, it just proves that if you get the right coach, the right manager to get inside the head of a player, you can turn him round. And I accept that he's a different player. He's looked sparkling in his 3 performances so far for City, and I feel every justification for Sam Allardyce to have picked him in his first England team. Okay, I'll nominate him a winner.
So Raheem Sterling is your hero of the season. When last year he was very much the villain. Well, mine is Serena Williams. Okay, because Serena Williams the other day powered to her record 307th Grand Slam match win.
Unbelievable.
Right, to reach the 4th round of the US Open. She won ahead of Martina Navratilova for most match wins in a major by a woman. Yes. She's tied with Roger Federer now for men with that 6-2, 6-1 victory over Johanna Larsson, and doing it at Flushing Hunting Meadow, where she first won her first Grand Slam title in 1999.
Yeah.
When you think how many years ago that was,
indeed,
and she's still very much at the top.
17 years ago.
I think you cannot afford not to put her in there. She's hoping to win her 23rd Grand Slam singles title, which would see her surpass Steffi Graf as the most successful woman in the whole era of open tennis.
Absolutely.
Which I think is fantastic. So, Serena Williams, for me, as a hero, as indeed Jack Wilshere. For you, Jack Wilshere's a villain, along with Mario Balotelli.
Yes.
My villain's Keith Vaz, of course, and Mark Halsey. This is Talk Sport. We are the two mics. The show, Mr. Parry, is almost over because it's very time to move into the proper international kind of jet set time and go over to the England-Slovakia game, which is coming up, of course, at 5 o'clock. Ian Danton's taken over at 4.
He certainly is.
A couple of tweets and things coming in. So it was Wilshere's fault that the guy from Man United broke his ankle, says Matt.
Well, no, of course it wasn't, but it's then the recovery period. You know, Paul Gascoigne will admit to you now that during his recovery periods he was out drinking heavily. And that does not help bones knit because you carry oxygen in your blood.
That's
seriously.
Right. We're going to talk about blood in a moment because we've got Dr. Richard Jones here, who's an expert on mosquitoes. How about this from Rob, though, who says, another Porky name gaff, Nico Rosberg, not Nicky.
I know
I think he's thinking about Nicky Lauda.
No. I know it's Nico Rosberg. One here, and this comes from Charlie. He says, thank you so much, Porky, for the sermon on Daniel and his den. I missed church this morning. I now feel absolutely fulfilled and I can at last have a pint.
Oh, good.
Well, that's the reason I serve the audience. That's what I do.
Exactly, right.
Yeah.
Now, let's talk to Dr. Richard Jones, because you've spotted a possible problem coming up in the autumn, haven't you? With
Indeed.
the advent of more hot weather and more wet weather. The more mosquitoes, and they may all be flocking, or should I say swarming, towards football grounds.
That's right.
Dr. Jones, very good afternoon to you.
Hello there.
Hi, Doctor. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much indeed. Now, you're a mosquito expert, right, I'm told. Have you written books on mosquitoes?
I have written a book about mosquitoes, more to do with the sort of sociological and historical aspects of them on human activity rather than the sort of medical details.
Okay.
But
now,
mosquitoes are really important because, you know, they've plagued human beings for millennia, even hundreds of millennia. So there's nothing new there.
Now, the weather changing in this country over the last couple of decades, you know, climate change, all that kind of stuff, are we now in danger of becoming a mosquito-infested country, Doc? Because the piece I've been reading this, over the last couple of days, and I think I read a piece in the Sunday Times in particular, says that the conditions now for mosquitoes are turning out to be perfect in this country, particularly around football grounds, which constantly have wet pitches because they are watered for the benefit of the players.
Well, I think you've got to remember one of these things is that Britain has always been a mosquito-infested country.
What?
And we've always had mosquitoes here. And, in fact...
Well, in hovels and that sort of place, but not in sort of...
Haven't you got any in your house?
No, I've never seen a mosquito in this country.
All over the place.
Really?
I mean, one of the problems is that they don't just need... It's not the hot weather, it's not the climate change or the warm weather which is affecting them. Because you go to Scotland or you go to northern Canada, some of the coldest places they are, you know, the mosquito capitals. Mm-hmm. So the important thing is wet, where the larvae breed.
Right.
My father used to go up to the Cairngorms, you know, camping and hiking across the hills. He would sometimes come back with his face completely covered in mosquito bites because he'd stick his head. There'd be swarms of what they call midges up there, but they're more or less the same thing, right?
They're similar blood-sucking insects, but it's not to do necessarily with warm weather. It's to do with the wet, where the larvae breed. They're aquatic. I can't imagine the larvae are going to survive on even the worst waterlogged football pitch because they need pools. They don't need much of a pool. I mean, they'll breed in a discarded tin can, but they need water that's not disturbed.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure where this idea about mosquito-infested football grounds has come from.
Right, okay.
But of
it's
course,
one of Porky's journals, I understand.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Something I picked up.
The trouble is that mosquitoes are very common in towns and cities. Whereas they never used to be, because they were always a countryside thing where you've got streams, ditches, dikes, ponds. Yeah. Because everyone's got a water feature in their garden these days. So garden ponds, brilliant for garden wildlife, but also perfect places for mosquitoes to breed.
Well, really? Porky's only got a roof garden, haven't he?
Yeah,
so
I've got a roof garden.
Don't worry about that.
I've got a bird bath in it. I've got a bird bath in it, Doc. Will that attract them?
a bird bath is perfectly good for mosquitoes to breed in.
I'm getting rid of it.
Yeah, they need a cup full of water. That's all, and you've got a viable colony there, no problem.
Well, is there any danger, Dr. Jones, that the mosquito sort of variety that we have here is likely to become more dangerous? I.e., would they carry the Zika virus, or would they carry malaria? That kind of thing.
Malaria used to occur in Britain. It occurred right up until the end of the 19th century.
Really?
And we used to call it ague. And if you look through all the old books, look through Shakespeare and Spencer, and they all talk about the ague. And they didn't really understand what was going on, but it was our native malaria. It's been eradicated because the fens have been drained. The farmland there they used to breed has been drained. It's killed off all the larvae. And it's diluted it to the point where there are no people with malaria, so the mosquitoes can't bite them, so they can't then pass the malaria on to new people, and it's collapsed. We've got the right species in Britain. Yeah. We've got the right species for transferring malaria, which is a big old one. All the ones like West Nile virus, dengue, and now Zika, these are viruses. The species are there. If we get people contaminated with these, or infected with these diseases coming to Britain, they could quite easily be bitten and the disease spread. Luckily, we have a very healthy population in this country, so that's, I think, unlikely to happen in the near future.
Yeah, well, I hope not. But anyway, there we are.
So when you hear that little, that very annoying little buzz in your ear, the very high-pitched one, which you can't see, but you can only hear, and it only happens just when you're about to fall asleep, and then it stops, and then it starts again. Yeah, and that thing that drives you mad. That's a mosquito.
Mosquitoes have got they sneak up on you. It's not like a predator stalking you and pouncing on you.
No.
They're much smaller than us. They've got to be really, really careful. So actually, although you've got that high-pitched whine, if it lands on your ear, on your face, that high-pitched whine is actually very difficult for the human ear to pick up if they're biting you on your toe, which is sticking out of the bottom of the sheet at the end of the bed. So there's a lot of evolution gone into honing the detective nature of the mosquitoes, finding people to bite, and also then coming in for the sneak attack to get their bite really quickly and get out before they've been noticed and spotted.
I've worked out how I'm going to make my next fortune, Doc. I'm going to start inventing those kitchen doors that they have in America out onto the deck, with mesh in them.
So with the screen, I think that'd be a very useful thing.
I've always wondered why we don't have those in our country.
Well, because we haven't had mosquitoes before, have we?
They've always been here.
Well, I know, but not in the numbers that they're going to be here over the next few years. I mean, they are increasing, aren't they, Doc?
They are. The trouble is, they're increasing is one of those anecdotal statistics. And the trouble with anecdotes is everyone's anecdote is different.
Yeah, I see.
So on the whole, mosquitoes aren't necessarily increasing. No. But we've got short memories. They die off in winter. We don't see much of them. And then every summer, there's a whole cloud of them. And everyone says, oh, my God, where are all these mosquitoes coming from? We must, it's a new plague.
Yeah.
It's the same thing happened last year and the year before and way back into history.
Fantastic.
So
Dr. Richard,
I wouldn't worry too much about
Dr. Richard Jones.
Okay, Doc, thanks very much indeed
for talking to us about that. It's not quite as worrying as you were making out to be, as usual. It was a bit of a false alarm.
You ask anybody.
Porky, false alarm.
Go on, you go outside now and say, did you know there's clouds of mosquitoes all over Britain? They'd say, no, I didn't know we had mosquitoes in Britain. I didn't know we had mosquitoes in Britain.
But we've always had them, because you can hear them. You can hear them buzzing in your ear.
Well, I don't hear these buzzings noises in my ear. No, I don't. No.
Do you wear earmuffs at night or something?
No, the only time I ever hear them is when I'm abroad. You know, I remember in Italy once I got attacked by mosquitoes and other places,
So, Mr. Parry, at the end of another show.
Indeed.
Of things. You're going to hot foot it down to the Parry family headquarters.
Indeed.
In Stockbroker Belt, Surrey.
That's right.
Get there for the Sue Ellen's place?
It is indeed, yeah. And we get stuck into the England game and then a bit of a sort of family banquet.
Yes. Okay. Yes. Well, don't forget to keep tweeting.
Indeed
you're going to be in Purda for that.
Indeed.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. You predicted 2-1 for England.
I predicted 2-1, you predicted 3-1. Yeah. And what I can't face up to is anything less than a victory.
0-2, says Danta. So England, for heaven's sake. Now, we also need the result of the heroes and villains.
Yes.
So I'm going to look quizzically at Mr. John Cadigan behind the glass there. Yeah. What's the verdict, John? He's awarding it to me. What a top man.
I can't believe that.
Because of Keith Vaz. Because of Keith Vaz.
Yeah, well, Keith Vaz has nothing to do with sport.
Doesn't have to be.
Essentially, a
he's
sport
still a villain.
So,
he's still a villain.
That's your point of view.
He's been involved in a lot of sport.
Exactly.
If you read the Sunday Mirror, I think you'll find that, he's been a very busy boy.
Remarkable corruption of